The officiant smiled at my sister and touched 2 fingers to the little card tucked inside his black binder. Before we exchange vows, Reverend Ellis said, "Tessa, would you tell us the story behind this beautiful veil?" I stopped breathing. Tessa stood beneath an arch of white roses with Ryan's hands wrapped around hers. The veil fell from the pearl comb in her hair all the way to the train of her dress, the lace so clean and bright that no one in that room would have guessed I had spent 6 weeks bent over it beneath a desk lamp. My mother sat in the front row, smiling up at Tessa with wet, expectant eyes. Tessa looked at her. Then she looked at me. She pulled the comb from her hair. A few people made the soft, startled sound people make when a glass tips near the edge of a table. Tessa crossed the 2 steps between us and pushed the veil into my arms. "It was my grandmother's," she told the room, "but it isn't really my story. It mattered to Mara. Mom wanted me to wear it." Then she turned back to Ryan. My mother leaned toward me without moving anything but her mouth. "Sit down," she whispered. "Do not make this worse." I hadn't said a word. 6 months earlier, the veil had still been in the bottom drawer of a dresser nobody wanted. The dresser had belonged to my grandmother June, who believed every flat surface needed 1 ceramic bird and every drawer needed a sachet that smelled like a funeral home. After she died, my mother and I spent 3 Saturdays sorting her house. Tessa came on the first one wearing white jeans and left after 40 minutes because the dust was doing something weird to her eyes. She did take the ceramic bluebird from the kitchen windowsill. "It always made Grandma happy," she said, slipping it into her purse. "It held her loose blood pressure pills," I told her. Tessa paused. "That doesn't mean it didn't make her happy." That was Tessa. She could say something ridiculous with enough dignity that you ended up feeling petty for having introduced facts. My mother, Denise, stood in the hallway with a roll of masking tape looped around her wrist like a bracelet. She had assigned each room a color: yellow stickers for donations, green for family, red for items she wanted to evaluate. Almost everything of sentimental value received a red sticker. "Your sister has a more visual memory," she told me after Tessa left. "What does that mean?" "She connects to objects she can see. Unlike the rest of us who connect to invisible objects." Mom tore off a piece of tape with her teeth. "You know what I mean?" I did. Tessa remembered Grandma through the pretty bluebird. I remembered her through compression socks, grocery receipts, and the dent her walker left in my passenger door. I had been the one who came by every Tuesday and Thursday after work during the last 3 years of Grandma's life. She didn't require full-time care. She just needed enough help that everyone could tell themselves she was still independent. I picked up prescriptions, changed light bulbs, washed her hair when her shoulder hurt, and listened to her complain that television actors whispered too much now. My father came when something had to be lifted. Mom brought casseroles and then called me to ask whether Grandma had eaten them. Tessa arrived with expensive hand cream and stayed long enough to take photographs. Grandma loved all of us. That was the inconvenient thing. She loved Tessa's noise and Mom's bossiness and Dad's habit of fixing appliances that would have been cheaper to replace. She wasn't a saint who saw through everyone except me. Sometimes she made excuses for Tessa before anybody had accused her of anything. "She's still finding her footing," Grandma would say. Tessa is 31. Feet can be complicated. But Grandma noticed who showed up. She noticed without turning it into a speech, which was one of the reasons I kept showing up. On the second sorting Saturday, I was emptying her bedroom closet when Mom called from down the hall. "Mara, do we know anyone who wants an adjustable shower chair? You mean besides the charity on your yellow sticker list?" There's no need to be sarcastic. I'm trying to be thoughtful. I sat back on my heels and looked at the dresses hanging in front of me. Grandma's clothes were arranged by color, from pale blouses on the left to 2 black dresses on the right. There was a gap where her green cardigan used to hang. I had taken it to the hospital the night she died. It was still folded over the chair in my bedroom because I hadn't decided whether keeping it was comforting or creepy. "Donate the chair," I called. Mom appeared in the doorway carrying a clear plastic bag of extension cords. "You don't have to do everything today. You scheduled the realtor for Monday. I said we don't have to emotionally do everything today. She stepped over a box of shoes and opened the bottom drawer of Grandma's dresser. The scent of cedar and lavender drifted up. Mom lifted out 2 table runners, a stack of old pillowcases, and a bundle wrapped in faded blue tissue. I knew what it was before she opened it. The veil was ivory then, though parts of it had yellowed almost to tea brown. The comb was wrapped separately in a handkerchief. Tiny fabric flowers ran along the edge, each with a pearl bead at its center. Mom held it up by the shoulders. "Oh," she said, "I forgot about this." I reached for it automatically. "Careful. I am being careful." The lace snags on rings. She looked at her hand and then handed it to me. "Fine. You're the textile police." Grandma had shown me the veil 6 times over the years. The first time, I was 24 and newly single after a man named Scott announced that he needed more space while standing in the apartment I paid for. Grandma had found me eating crackers over her sink. "You know," she'd said, "your grandfather once broke up with me over a bowling league." I looked at her. "Grandpa bowled?" "No." That was part of the problem. Then she took me into her bedroom and pulled out the veil. She had worn it when she married my grandfather in 1958, 3 months after he came back and apologized for behaving like an ass. That was her phrase. Grandma's stories tended to survive because she refused to polish them. The veil had cost $12 at a dress shop in Milwaukee. She'd added the flowers herself. One corner had a brown crescent where her sister caught it with a curling iron on the morning of the wedding. Everything people call timeless was once just what they could afford, she told me. Years later, when her fingers had swollen with arthritis, she taught me how to clean the lace in a shallow basin and how to make the tiny anchoring stitches around a loose flower. During one of those afternoons, she put the veil in my lap. "If you ever want this, it's yours," she said. "I'm not getting married. I didn't ask for your schedule. I'm serious. So am I. Marriage isn't what makes it yours. You're the one who knows how not to ruin it." That was as close as June Bennett came to a blessing. Standing in her bedroom after her funeral, I ran my thumb over one of the pearl-headed stitches. "She told me I could have this," I said. Mom was kneeling beside a box marked linens. She didn't look up. "Did she?" "Yes." "When?" "A few years ago." Mom folded a pillowcase into quarters. "Well, nobody's making decisions about important things today. You just gave Tessa the bluebird. The bluebird is not important. It held Grandma's medication. Please stop saying that like it makes it sacred." I almost laughed. Mom's grief had made her brittle, and mine had made me mean in small, precise ways. Neither of us was at our best. "I'm not asking for the house," I said. "I'm telling you what Grandma wanted. I heard you. Put it in the green box, and I'll keep the box until we've all had time to think. Why do we need to think about it?" That made her look up. "Because your father hasn't even gone through her things. Because your sister isn't here. Because I am the one handling the estate, and I'm not distributing family heirlooms based on private conversations no one else heard." There it was. Not quite an accusation. My mother was good at building sentences with back doors. I wrapped the veil in its tissue again. Grandma had died 11 days earlier. Mom had spent those 11 days answering calls, canceling utilities, finding the insurance information, and writing thank you notes to people who brought food none of us wanted. Fighting over lace in a half-empty bedroom felt obscene. So I put the veil in the green box. "Thank you," Mom said, in the tone she used when a cashier finally accepted an expired coupon. The green box went home with her. For the next 2 years, whenever I asked about the veil, she said it was safe. That became the entire answer. Meanwhile, life resumed its usual shape. Dad retired from the city water department and immediately discovered that retirement was hard on his knees. Mom volunteered him to help at the church food pantry, then asked me to drive him because she had Pilates at the same time. Tessa quit a marketing job she hated, spent 4 months becoming a real estate agent, then decided she disliked being available on weekends. I helped rewrite her resume. "You make me sound so competent," she said, reading it across my kitchen island. "You are competent." "Then why can't I sound like this when I write it? Because you use the phrase people person 3 times. I am a people person. You're 3 people persons." She threw a grape at me. It bounced off my forehead and landed in the sink, and we laughed until I had to grip the counter. That was the other inconvenient thing. I loved my sister. Not abstractly. Not because family was family. I genuinely liked her. Tessa could make a stranger tell her a life story in a grocery line. She remembered birthdays without reminders and sent voice messages when a text would do because, according to her, punctuation was emotionally unreliable. When my furnace died during a January cold snap, she showed up with 2 space heaters, a bottle of wine, and a duffel bag because she assumed she was staying. She also had a lifelong talent for standing in the warmest spot in any room and acting surprised that the rest of us were cold. The Sunday she announced her engagement, she was already wearing the ring. Mom saw it before Tessa got her coat off and screamed so loudly Dad came out of the kitchen holding a meat thermometer like a weapon. Ryan stood behind Tessa, grinning and nervous. He was a broad-shouldered physical therapist with kind eyes and an unfortunate loyalty to tan dress shoes. I'd liked him from the beginning, partly because he never laughed when Tessa volunteered me for things. Mom grabbed Tessa's hand. "Oh my God. Oh, Alan, look at it. Look at that stone." Dad lowered the thermometer. "I can see it from here." Tessa laughed and started crying. Then Mom cried. Ryan hugged Dad. Dad looked alarmed by both the hug and the crying, so I rescued him by hugging Ryan next. "Congratulations," I said. "You sure?" Ryan glanced at Tessa. "Ask me after your mother plans the wedding." "Too late," Mom said. "I've already started." We had champagne with pot roast because that was what Dad had made. Tessa told us Ryan had proposed that morning beside the lake where they'd had their first date. Mom asked 19 questions about venues before dessert. Then while Dad was cutting a grocery store cheesecake, Mom put down her fork. "I just thought of something." Something in her voice made me look up. She reached across the table and squeezed Tessa's wrist. "You can wear Grandma June's veil." Dad stopped cutting the cheesecake. Tessa's fingers went still beneath Mom's hand. Ryan looked between us, missing whatever had just passed under the table. "That would be beautiful," Mom said. 3 generations. Well, 2 generations wearing it, but 3 generations represented. I stared at her. Mom kept her eyes on Tessa. Your dress could be simple, and then the veil would be the whole statement. "I don't even have a dress yet," Tessa said. "That's why this is perfect. We can plan around it." "Mom." It came out sharper than I intended. Ryan's gaze landed on me. Mom released Tessa and reached for her water. "What? You know Grandma gave me that veil." "No, Mara. You told me she said something to you about it. That is not the same thing. It sounded pretty clear when she said, 'If you ever want this, it's yours.'" Dad put the knife down beside the cheesecake. A clod of filling clung to the blade. "Can we not do this tonight?" he asked. "I'm not doing anything. I'm responding to something Mom just announced." Mom's shoulders stiffened. "I thought you would be happy to see it worn." "By Tessa." "Yes, by Tessa, because Tessa is getting married." The words sat there in their neat little row. Tessa withdrew her hand and twisted the ring so the stone faced her palm. "I don't need Grandma's veil." "No one said you needed it," Mom replied. "It would be meaningful. It was promised to Mara." Mom turned to me. "Was there a note?" Ryan studied his plate. Dad picked up the cake knife, reconsidered, and put it down again. "No," I said. "Did June ever mention it to anyone else?" "I don't know." "Then perhaps she was speaking sentimentally. Your grandmother said things in the moment. She wasn't confused. I did not say she was confused. You're making it sound like she handed me a peppermint and told me I was special." Dad pushed his chair back half an inch. "Mara." That was my warning, not my name. The request to become easier. Tessa rubbed the side of her thumb over the ring. I could wear something else. "You haven't even seen the veil," Mom said. "I have in pictures. You saw it in person at Grandma's." "I don't remember." Mom's mouth tightened just briefly. Tessa had failed the sentimental test Mom had written for her. Ryan finally spoke. "We don't have to decide anything tonight." He said it gently, as though suggesting everyone evacuate a building without mentioning the smoke. "Exactly," Dad said. "Let's have dessert." Mom sat back. "I was trying to do something nice." "For whom?" I asked. She gave me a tired look. "I am not fighting with you at your sister's engagement dinner. You brought it up, and now I'm ending it." Dad began cutting again. He pressed too hard, and the crust cracked into 3 pieces. Tessa met my eyes across the table. She looked apologetic. She also looked relieved that Mom's anger had shifted entirely toward me. I knew that look. I had been collecting versions of it since we were teenagers. Ryan carried the plates to the kitchen after dinner. Dad followed with the serving knife, though there was nothing left to serve. Mom cornered Tessa near the coat closet to discuss dates, leaving me to stack champagne glasses. "You okay?" Ryan asked quietly. "I'm putting glasses in a dishwasher. It's grueling, but I'll survive." He smiled, then glanced toward the dining room. "I didn't know about the veil. Why would you? Tessa might have. She probably forgot." The defense came out automatically. Ryan noticed. His face didn't change, but I saw him notice. "She does that," he said. "Forget? Let you answer for her." Before I could decide whether I appreciated his insight or resented it, Tessa came into the kitchen carrying her purse. "Are we getting marital counseling already?" "Just discussing your many flaws," I said. "Good. Pace yourselves." She bumped her shoulder against mine. It was such a normal, affectionate gesture that my anger lost its clean edges. Mom called after them from the hallway. "Sunday brunch next week. We need to make a preliminary list." "A list of what?" Ryan asked. "Everything." He looked at me as Tessa pulled him toward the door. "Save yourself," I said. "I heard that," Mom called. "You were meant to." Dad waited until they had left before he came into the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator, stared inside, and closed it again. "You hurt your mother's feelings." She gave away something that wasn't hers. She didn't give it away. She suggested it. She suggested it as if the decision had already been made. He leaned against the counter and rubbed one knee. "Your grandmother didn't leave instructions." "She told me. I believe you. It should have helped. Instead, it made me angrier. Then why didn't you say that at the table?" "Because it was Tessa's night." "Right. Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make one thing mean every other thing." I picked up a champagne flute and held it to the light. Lipstick marked the rim in a coral crescent. "Mom's shade. Grandma gave me the veil. Mom knew that." Then Tessa got engaged, and suddenly it became a family heirloom available to the first person with a venue. Dad exhaled. "Your sister said she didn't need it. She also didn't say she wouldn't take it. You're angry at the wrong person. I'm capable of being angry at 2 people." His mouth twitched before he could stop it. "You always were efficient." I laughed once, though I didn't want to. He patted my shoulder on his way out. "Give it a week. Your mother gets ideas. Most of them tire her out eventually. That was Dad's method of family management. He treated conflict like weather, inconvenient, unavoidable, and best survived indoors." The next morning, Mom sent a photograph to our family group chat. It showed Grandma on her wedding day standing on the steps of a small brick church. Grandpa looked terrified. Grandma looked delighted by his terror. The veil fell over her shoulders in a soft triangle, its edges bright against her dark hair. Mom had cropped the picture to center the lace. "Can you imagine this with Tessa's coloring?" she wrote. 3 dots appeared beside Tessa's name. They vanished, then returned. "It is really pretty," Tessa wrote. I set my phone face down on my desk. 5 minutes later, she called. "Before you say anything, I didn't ask her to send that. I know. And I said it was pretty because it is pretty. I know. You're doing that thing where I know means the opposite of I know." "I'm at work, Tess." "I can tell. You sound like you're wearing your serious cardigan." I looked down. "Gray wool, 3 buttons. What do you want me to say? That you don't think I'm stealing from you?" Are you planning to wear it? I haven't planned anything. We got engaged yesterday. Then tell Mom no. She went quiet. Through the glass wall of my office, I could see two co-workers standing beside the printer. One of them shook the paper tray as if trying to wake it. Tessa? I don't want this to become a whole thing. It already is a whole thing. Only because you and Mom both turn every decision into a loyalty test. That hit close enough to be effective. I didn't make the announcement, I said. No, but you went from 0 to courtroom in 6 seconds. Courtroom? I repeated what Grandma told me. At my engagement dinner. Mom brought it up at your engagement dinner, and I told her I didn't need it. I swiveled my chair away from the glass. You said you could wear something else. That is not the same as saying Grandma wanted Mara to have it, so I won't take it. You hear how scripted that sounds, right? It doesn't have to be word for word. I don't even know what my dress looks like yet. Can we let this breathe? Objects did not breathe. Decisions waited until the person most exhausted by the argument surrendered. I need to go, I said. She sighed. Okay, love you. Love you too. We both said it with enough irritation that it sounded like a threat. For 10 days, nobody mentioned the veil. Mom sent venue links. Tessa created a shared spreadsheet and gave me editing access without asking. Ryan texted me a picture of a hotel ballroom with the message, "Is beige a theme?" I replied, "In this family, beige is a coping strategy." Then Mom asked me to come over after work. Her dining room table had disappeared beneath bridal magazines, catering menus, and paint swatches that had somehow become relevant. She had placed Grandma's blue tissue bundle in the center. I stopped in the doorway. Mom looked up from her laptop. Don't make a face. I'm standing here. You're standing judgmentally. That's a useful skill. She ignored that and unwrapped the veil. Under the dining room chandelier, the discoloration looked worse than I remembered. Yellow had spread through the folds. One flower hung by a thread, and brown pinpricks marked the area around the comb. Mom clicked her tongue. It needs professional cleaning. No dry cleaner. Obviously, not a regular one. I called a bridal preservation place. I picked up the corner nearest me. The lace felt dry. What did they say? They want to see it. They estimated anywhere from $400 to $900. That's a wide estimate. They said handwork is unpredictable. Tessa should just buy a veil. Mom closed the laptop. Mara. What? I know you're disappointed. Do you? Yes. I also think you're attaching more to this object than June did. I stared at her. You're the one planning a wedding around it. That is not fair. It's exact. She pressed both palms to the table. Her wedding ring clicked against the wood. Tessa tried on dresses Saturday. I hadn't known she was going. She found one, Mom continued. It's lovely, very clean, very modern. The veil would give it character. Was I not invited? It was spontaneous. My mother could weaponize that word like nobody else. Tessa called me Friday night, she said. The boutique had a cancellation. That is almost a full day of spontaneity. You were working. I don't work Saturdays. Well, I didn't know your plans. You didn't ask. We are not discussing the dress appointment. We are discussing the veil. No, you're telling me you already matched it to a dress I wasn't invited to see. Mom folded her arms. You are making it increasingly difficult to include you. The sentence landed with such practiced smoothness that I wondered how long she'd been holding it. I looked down at Grandma's veil. One of her pearl-headed stitches had come loose near my thumb. What do you want from me? Mom's expression softened immediately. She came around the table and touched the lace. You know how June cleaned it. You know the stitches. I thought you could restore it. I laughed because the alternative was saying something neither of us could take back. You want me to repair the veil you're giving to Tessa. I want you to help your sister carry something of Grandma's into her marriage. She doesn't care about it. She will. That's not an answer. Mom lifted the veil and placed it in my hands. The lace settled over my wrists, light as dust. Please, she said. You're the only one I trust not to ruin it. It was a perfect sentence. Mom had taken the thing she was using against me and turned my ability to protect it into the reason I should cooperate. I held the veil away from my body so the comb wouldn't catch my blouse. If I do this, that doesn't mean I agree it belongs to Tessa. Why does everything need a disclaimer? Because you hear help as consent. I hear help as help. No, you hear it as the discussion being over. Mom walked back to her chair and sat down. She opened her laptop, though the screen had gone dark. What would you like me to do, Mara? Lock the veil away until some hypothetical day when you may or may not marry? I told you, marriage wasn't Grandma's condition. I understand that's how you remember it. There were moments with my mother when anger arrived so cleanly that it almost felt calming. I put the veil on the table. You believe she said it. Mom looked at the black screen. I believe she may have said something affectionate while the two of you were talking about weddings. We weren't talking about weddings. Then what were you talking about? Scott had left. Scott. She blinked. That was 12 years ago. Grandma kept things. That doesn't make every conversation a legal declaration. I'm not making it legal. I'm asking you to respect what she wanted. Mom rubbed the place between her eyebrows. June also wanted her family to stay close. She wanted us to share things. She would be horrified to see you treat Tessa like an intruder over a piece of lace. Grandma had once refused to speak to her own sister for 8 months over a borrowed roasting pan, but death had improved her temperament considerably. I wrapped the veil again. I'm taking it tonight. Mom's head came up. What? To inspect it under better light. You'll bring it back. If I can restore it, I'll tell you. That isn't what I asked. I know. Her chair scraped the floor as she stood. I am not comfortable with you taking it while you're this upset. It was in your dining room waiting for me. To work on. Not to claim. You just said you trust me not to ruin it. I trust your hands. I am becoming less confident about your judgment. I tucked the bundle under my arm. Then call the preservation place and spend $900. We looked at each other across the table. Mom's face changed first. Not softened exactly, but tired. The fight dropped out of her shoulders. I don't understand why you can't let your sister have one thing, she said. That sentence was too large for the room. I waited for her to hear it. She didn't. Good night, Mom. She followed me into the foyer. Mara. I picked up my purse. Don't leave like this. How would you prefer I leave? You know exactly what you're doing. I opened the door. So do you. The veil rode home on my passenger seat. At every turn, I put one hand on the tissue bundle, as though it might slide away. By the time I reached my apartment, I had decided I would examine the lace, photograph every damaged area, and return it untouched. That was sensible, neutral. It protected me from becoming useful in my own exclusion. Then I unwrapped it beneath the lamp on my desk. One edge had been folded against a rusting pin. A cluster of flowers near the crown had collapsed. The comb's thread had weakened enough that 2 teeth shifted when I touched them. I could hear Grandma's voice telling me not to pull. I went to the kitchen and filled a shallow glass dish with distilled water. The first thing I did was cut away the rusting pin. The second was call myself an idiot. I was still bent over the lace an hour later when my phone buzzed. Tessa's name appeared, followed by a message. Mom says you stole the veil, I typed. Mom left it on the table for me to repair. The reply came immediately. So you stole it professionally? I didn't answer. She called. You know she's acting like you drove away with the silverware tucked under your shirt, she said when I picked up. Did you call to check whether she needed to notify the authorities? No. I called because I'm sitting in my car outside her house, and she won't stop using the phrase unstable behavior. That sounds like Mom. It sounds like Mom trying not to say you've lost your mind. I adjusted the lamp. Is there a reason you're outside her house? I brought fabric samples. Of course you did. Don't say it like that. They're napkin colors. That explanation made it worse. Tessa was quiet for a second. Are you fixing it? I'm trying to keep the comb from staining the lace. Can I come over? No, I already told Mom I was going to. Then tell her you changed your mind. I'd rather tell her you locked me out. Tessa, 10 minutes. She hung up. She arrived in 9 carrying a white bakery box and 3 rectangles of green fabric. I brought piece cake, she announced when I opened the door. That's not a thing. It is if the cake is free. She walked past me, set the box on my kitchen counter, and held up the fabric samples. Sage, eucalyptus, or something called woodland mist. They're the same color. That's what Ryan said. He's no longer on napkins. She draped them over the back of a stool and looked toward my desk. The veil lay open over a white towel, its loosened flowers held in place with glass-headed pins. Tessa approached slowly. Wow. What? It looks old. It is old. I know, but in the picture, it looked romantic old. This is medical old. I stared at her. That came out wrong. It came out exactly how you meant it. She crouched beside the desk. Can I touch it? No. She tucked her hands beneath her thighs. Without makeup, Tessa looked tired. Her eyes were faintly swollen, and there was a red mark on the side of her nose where her sunglasses had rested. She had probably cried at Mom's house, though with Tessa, it was equally possible she had laughed too hard at something on the drive over. What happened at the dress appointment? I asked. Her attention stayed on the veil. Mom told you. She mentioned it after she asked me to donate my labor. It really was last minute. You called her Friday. The appointment was Saturday morning. That is last minute in wedding time. You could have called me. I thought you'd say no. You didn't give me the chance. I know. You also could have said, Mara should come. I know. That second answer had less defense in it. I sat on the edge of my chair. Why didn't you? She picked at a loose thread on her jeans. Because every wedding conversation turns into this. This being what? Grandma. Mom. Who gets what? Who did more? Who's allowed to be happy about something without proving someone else wasn't hurt? I didn't know about the appointment, so I wasn't in the conversation. You were absolutely in the conversation. I leaned back. Tessa looked up at me. Mom kept saying the dress would look perfect with the veil. I said you wouldn't like that. She said you were being overly emotional because of Grandma. The consultant asked who you were. Then Mom said, her sister is complicated. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I should have stopped her, Tessa said. Yes, I didn't want to ruin the appointment. Whose appointment? She closed her eyes. Mine. There it was. Tessa could find the truth. She just preferred arriving after it had stopped being useful. She stood and went to the kitchen. Cardboard shifted as she opened the bakery box. It's almond, she called. Don't say I never bring you anything. You brought me an obligation and a cake. That's basically our family crest. She returned with 2 forks and the open box. Inside was half a small layer cake, one side crushed where it had been cut. Mom had this in her freezer, she said. It may be from Easter. It's October. Freezing stops time. That is not how food works. We ate standing over the box. The frosting tasted faintly like onions, which suggested it had spent several months beside something uncovered. Tessa scraped her fork through the middle. I don't need the veil, she said. I swallowed. Then tell Mom. I did. No, you said you could wear something else. I told her again tonight. What did she say? That I was letting you dictate my wedding. I set my fork down. Tessa looked toward the desk. She cried. Mom cries when the printer asks her to replace ink. That doesn't mean it's fake. I didn't say it was fake. You act like feeling guilty is proof someone manipulated you. In this family, it's at least circumstantial evidence. She smiled despite herself. Then the smile disappeared. I don't want to wear something you hate seeing on me. I wouldn't hate seeing it on you. You know what I mean. I did. I wiped frosting from my thumb. Do you want it? She gave a tiny shrug. That isn't an answer. I want what it would mean to Mom. What would it mean? That we're still a family after Grandma. That something continued. She looked embarrassed as soon as she said it. I know that sounds corny. No, it sounds honest. She keeps talking about the photograph. Grandma in the veil, then me in the veil, side by side. Mom likes proof. So do you. The words stung because they were true in a different direction. Tessa walked back to the desk. I remember Grandma wearing that blue robe with the zipper. She had 3. I thought it was one indestructible robe. She bought multiples. She used to keep butterscotch candies in the pocket and tissues. Never reach in without checking. Tessa smiled. She told me Grandpa proposed twice because she didn't hear him the first time. She heard him. What? She wanted him to do better, so she pretended a truck went by. Tessa laughed, then covered her mouth as if we were in Grandma's bedroom and might wake her. For a moment, I could see what Mom wanted. Not the photograph, the bridge. Tessa at the beginning of a marriage wearing something June had stitched at the beginning of hers. Me preserving it. Mom arranging us all into a version of the family where love traveled cleanly from one woman to the next. The trouble was that bridges carried people in both directions. Mom wanted one that only led toward Tessa. I turned the lamp back toward the comb. It'll take weeks, I said. Tessa's laughter faded. To fix. To clean it safely, stabilize the flowers, and reattach the comb. You'll do it? I'll restore Grandma's veil. That's what I'm agreeing to. She nodded carefully. And after that? She asked. After that, we still have to decide whether you wear it. Her face tightened. It was only a flicker, but I saw it. Then she looked down at the cake and said, Mom already booked the photographer for the bridal portrait. For the what? Tessa winced. Bridal portrait. You're having a separate portrait session? Apparently. Mom says it's traditional. In what country? She has a coupon. That sounded more like Mom's tradition. I looked at the veil. When? 3 weeks from Saturday. No, I told her that might be too soon. You told her it might be too soon after I just explained it'll take weeks? She booked it before tonight. Of course she did. She can reschedule. Then she should. Tessa picked up the bakery box. I'll tell her. Tell her now. Mara. If you leave here without saying anything, she'll call me tomorrow and explain how the deposit is non-refundable. It probably is non-refundable. Tessa. She set down the cake and took out her phone. Mom answered on the second ring. Tessa put her on speaker, which I hadn't requested but appreciated for evidentiary reasons. Did she give it to you? Mom asked. Tessa looked at me. Hi to you too. Hello. Did Mara give you the veil? No. She's working on it. A pause. So she is going to repair it. She said she'd restore it. Good. I knew she would come around. I folded my arms. Tessa saw and turned away. The portrait appointment needs to move. Why? Because the veil won't be ready in 3 weeks. What does she have to do to it? I don't know, Mom. Lace surgery. I knew we should have taken it to the preservation place. Put Mara on. She's busy doing lace surgery. I can hear her. Then you don't need me to put her on. There was a longer pause. Tessa had inherited her timing from Grandma, though she used it less often. The deposit was $150, Mom said. I'll pay you back. That's not the point. It sounds exactly like the point. The photographer arranged her schedule for us. She'll arrange it again. You cannot keep changing plans every time Mara objects. Tessa's jaw moved slightly. This isn't Mara objecting. The veil is damaged. It was not damaged when it left my house. I leaned toward the phone. The comb is rusting, 3 flowers are loose, and the lace is badly discolored. I did not mean you damaged it. You said it became damaged after it left your house. That is not what I said. You're right. You only placed the words close together and trusted us to assemble them. Tessa closed her eyes. Mom inhaled slowly. This is precisely why I wanted a professional. You wanted a professional until the estimate was $900. Because I thought Mara would be happy to do something meaningful for her sister. She is doing something meaningful, Tessa said. The room went quiet. Mom recovered first. Then why am I being punished? No one is punishing you. Move the appointment. I will call tomorrow. Thank you. And Tessa? Yes? Bring those fabric samples back. Your father thinks woodland mist looks gray. Dad thinks every color he can't name is gray. I heard that, Dad called somewhere behind her. Tessa ended the call and placed her phone against her chest. You survived, I said. I think I lost an organ. You have extras. She pointed at me. This is why people think you're mean. People or Mom? Fine. Mom and the woman at the post office. The woman at the post office was wrong. We ate another bite of onion cake before she left. At the door, she hugged me with one arm, the fabric samples tucked beneath the other. I hugged her back. Neither of us mentioned the photographer again. Mom did reschedule the portrait session. She also sent me an email with the original booking confirmation, the photographer's cancellation policy, and no message. I replied with an estimate of the hours required to restore handmade lace. I included no message. This was how educated adults set fire to each other without raising their voices. The veil took over my dining table. I bought conservation soap, acid-free tissue, white cotton gloves, and a magnifying lamp powerful enough to reveal that every surface in my apartment was disgusting. I photographed each section before touching it. Then I soaked the lace in shallow baths, changing the water until it no longer turned the color of weak tea. The first night, I worked until 1 a.m. and dreamed that Grandma was standing beside the table, criticizing my stitch length. The second night, Dad called. Your mother says you're ignoring her. I emailed her yesterday. She says the email was hostile. It contained measurements. You know numbers make her nervous. I smiled despite myself. How's your knee? Still attached. It clicks now. Have you called Dr. Sanders? He knows I have a knee. That wasn't my question. I'll get to it. Which meant he would wait until the clicking became a limp, at which point Mom would call me. Dad cleared his throat. You need any help with Grandma's thing? Do you know how to make a couching stitch? No. Then probably not. I can bring dinner. That surprised me enough that I didn't answer right away. What? He said. Nothing. Yes. Bring dinner. He arrived with 2 meatball sandwiches and a 6-pack of ginger ale. He stood over the veil with his hands in his jacket pockets, as though viewing evidence at a crime scene. Looks smaller than I remember, he said. When did you see it? Our wedding. Grandma wore it to your wedding? No. Your mother displayed it on a table with all the family wedding pictures. That sounds safe. She put a candle beside it. I stared at him. It was the 80s, he said. Nobody knew anything. He ate his sandwich at the kitchen counter while I secured a loose flower. For several minutes, the only sounds were the rustle of wax paper and the small click of my scissors. She did tell me once that you should have it, Dad said. My hand stopped. Grandma? He nodded, still looking at the sandwich. She said you were the only one who could be trusted with old lace. When? I don't know. A couple years before she died. I was fixing the lamp in her bedroom. You told Mom you didn't know. No, I said she didn't leave instructions. At dinner, you let Mom ask whether anyone else had heard it, and you said nothing. He folded the sandwich wrapper into a square. I didn't remember then. You remembered enough to come here and say it now. Dad looked toward the dining table. It came back to me. Did Mom send you? No. Did she know you were bringing dinner? Yes. Does she know Grandma told you? He shifted his weight. That isn't the same question. No, it's a very specific question. He walked to the refrigerator and pulled out a ginger ale. He didn't open it. I may have mentioned it. What did she say? That June said a lot of things. I laughed quietly. Dad rolled the cold can between his palms. Your mother believes the veil should stay in the family. I am in the family. She means it should be used. I'm using it right now. It's keeping me from sleeping. You know what she means. So do you. He lowered his voice. I'm not taking sides. You came to my apartment to tell me Grandma said I should have it. That's a side. I came to bring you dinner. With testimony. Mara. I set down the needle. Do you believe I should have it? His eyes moved to the veil, then back to me. I believe things are only worth what people are willing to lose over them. That is the most dad answer you could possibly give. It's a good answer. It lets you avoid saying anyone is wrong. That's why it's good." He smiled, hoping I would. I didn't. His smile faded. "I don't want this wedding to turn into a family referendum," he said. "Then stop letting Mom call every disagreement a threat to the family. That's how your mother talks. And silence is how you agree." He flinched. I wished immediately that I had said it differently. Not because it was false, but because Dad's cowardice was woven together with gentleness. He had spent 40 years lowering the temperature in every room Mom entered. Sometimes that protected us. Sometimes it only made the burns easier to ignore. He picked up his jacket. "I'll schedule the knee appointment," he said. "Dad, don't stay up too late." He kissed the top of my head before I could stand. Then he left the unopened ginger ale on the counter. The next morning, he texted me the appointment time. No other message. Tessa's wedding spreadsheet grew new tabs almost daily. Venue, catering, flowers, rentals, guest addresses, music. There was one labeled contingencies, which was either optimism or a cry for help. She added my name beside tasks without asking. Confirm shuttle options, review florist contract, research welcome bag snacks. I deleted my name from the welcome bags. 10 minutes later, it reappeared. I deleted it again. Tessa called. "Why are you fighting the spreadsheet? It started it. I need help. You need pretzels. Not ordinary pretzels. We're doing local products. Then put Ryan's name there. Ryan thinks welcome bags are a plot by the hotel industry. He's right. He's responsible for transportation. I'm also responsible for transportation. You're confirming shuttle options. He's negotiating. What does that mean? He calls people. You can tell when they lie. That's not a wedding skill. That's a personality disorder. Please?" I watched the loose flower beneath my magnifier. Its tiny pearl center was still secure, but the fabric around it had thinned. "Ask me before you assign me things. I thought the spreadsheet counted as asking. It counts as typing." "Okay. Mara, will you help with the shuttle?" "Yes. And snacks?" "No." "Great. I'll leave that pending. Pending means no. It means we're preserving options." She hung up before I could answer. That Saturday, she came over to see the veil. Ryan came with her, carrying coffee and a box of latex-free gloves he'd purchased after Tessa told him I had become weird about skin oil. The lace had brightened to a soft ivory. The flowers lay flat again, and the scorch mark at the corner looked less like damage than a brushstroke. Tessa stood over it without speaking. Ryan leaned closer. "You did all that by hand? Most disasters are made and repaired that way." "Can she try it on?" Tessa asked. "No." Tessa sighed. "I am she. The comb isn't attached." "When will it be?" "A few days." She looked at the veil, then at me. "I want to wear it." Ryan's eyebrows lifted slightly. Tessa clasped her hands in front of her. "I know what I said. I know what Grandma said to you, but I want her there too." My throat tightened. "She can be there without you wearing it." "I know. But I want this. And what do I get?" Tessa looked startled, not offended. Worse, genuinely startled. "I don't mean payment," I said. "What happens to what Grandma wanted?" She glanced toward Ryan, but he stayed silent. Finally, she said, "You still get to keep it afterward." "According to whom?" "Me." I looked at her carefully. "Does Mom know that?" "No." "Then tell her before I attach the comb." Tessa stared at me. Ryan took a slow sip of coffee and found something fascinating about my bookshelf. "Right now?" she asked. "The comb will be attached by Wednesday, so before Wednesday. Can we not make everything a confrontation? You just told me I can keep the veil afterward. I'm asking you to say the same thing in front of Mom. I will. When? Soon. That isn't a time. Mara, I am standing in your apartment telling you I think the veil is yours. And I believe you believe that while you're standing in my apartment." Her face changed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means Mom has a way of turning a clear sentence into fog, and you have a way of getting lost when the fog benefits you." Ryan lowered his coffee. Tessa's eyes flashed. "You asked what you get. I answered. You offered me something that isn't yours to give. I thought your whole point was that it already belongs to you. It is. Then why do I need Mom's permission? You don't. I need to hear you tell her she doesn't have yours. Tessa took one step back from the table. This is exhausting. Yes, I meant you, I know. Ryan set his cup on the counter. Tess? No, I'm serious. I'm trying to do something nice. I'm trying to include Grandma, and somehow I'm being cross-examined over what happens after my wedding. You're trying to wear the thing we're fighting over, I said. That is not neutral. I didn't say it was neutral. Then call Mom. I'm not calling her with both of you watching me. Both of us? Ryan asked. Tessa turned on him. You're doing the quiet, disappointed face. This is my regular face. No, your regular face has less judgment around the mouth. He pressed his lips together, which did not help. She grabbed her purse from the stool. I'll talk to her privately. Tessa, I said I would. She went to the door. Ryan hesitated, looking at me. Go, I said. Transportation negotiations are already fragile. He gave me an apologetic half smile and followed her. The door closed harder than it needed to. I stood beside the table with the unfinished veil between my hands. The loose comb threads looked almost black beneath the magnifier. I cut them away one at a time. Tessa called Mom that evening. I knew because Mom called me immediately afterward. I understand you've placed conditions on your sister wearing the veil. I asked her to acknowledge that it comes back to me after the wedding. Comes back to you from where? From her head, ideally. This isn't funny. It was a little funny. Mom sighed. Tessa is upset. She left here upset. She feels you're making her choose between us. No, I'm making her say what she believes to both of us. And what she believes is apparently that I can't be trusted. If that bothers you, you could prove her wrong. I have kept that veil safely for 2 years. You kept it in a box with rusting pins. It was wrapped exactly as my mother wrapped it. That doesn't make it safe. Her voice cooled. I'm not discussing preservation methods. You called me. I called because I am trying to understand the demand. You may keep the veil after the wedding. There. Is that what you needed to hear? I sat down. The concession came so easily that I distrusted it more than resistance. Keep it as in own it? Mara. It's a simple question. I don't think family heirlooms are owned in the same way as ordinary property. You owned it enough to give it to Tessa. I lent it to Tessa for her wedding. You didn't ask me, because it was in my possession. And afterward? Afterward you can store it. Store it for whom? For the family. There it was. I rubbed my forehead. I'm not the family warehouse. No one called you that. You want me to restore it, protect it, and hold it until somebody you approve of wants it next. There is no somebody next. Then why can't you say it's mine? Because I don't believe June intended to turn a wedding veil into a weapon between her granddaughters. I closed my eyes. Mom's strongest move was always assigning an ugly motive to the person objecting to her. If I refused, I wasn't protecting myself. I was attacking Tessa. If I asked for clarity, I was making a weapon. I'm going to finish repairing it, I said. Tessa can borrow it for the wedding. It comes back to me that night. Fine. And it stays with me. I just said fine. No. You said I could store it. The line went quiet except for the faint sound of a television behind her. Dad was probably watching a home renovation show at a volume meant for airports. Why isn't it enough that I know what you want? Mom asked. Because you know and keep doing the opposite. She hung up. I sat with the phone against my ear for a few seconds after the call ended. Then a message from Tessa appeared. Did you two work it out? I typed 3 different answers and deleted all of them. Your veil will be ready. Wednesday, I finally wrote. 3 bubbles appeared. Thank you, she replied. Not Grandma's veil. Not your veil. Your veil. I couldn't tell whether it was carelessness or strategy. With Tessa, those 2 things often wore the same perfume. On Wednesday evening, I attached the repaired comb. Grandma had secured it with silk thread in looping stitches that were functional but uneven. I could have made mine smaller and cleaner. Instead, I followed the old holes, preserving the slightly crooked rhythm of her hand. When I finished, I carried the veil into my bedroom and held it up before the mirror. I didn't put it on. I had never tried it on, even when Grandma offered. At 24, the gesture had felt too hopeful. Later, it felt like tempting my mother to interpret my life. I held the comb above my head and watched the lace fall behind my shoulders. For 1 second, I saw Grandma's wedding photograph. Not her face in mine exactly, something in the angle of the fabric. The same imperfect flowers hovering near the ear. My phone rang on the dresser. It was Tessa. "Is it done?" she asked before saying hello. "Yes," she squealed. I lowered the comb. "It needs to be handled carefully." "I will be so careful. No hairspray after it goes on. No pins through the lace. Hold it by the comb when you remove it. I'm writing this down." "You're not. I'm mentally writing. That's forgetting with stationery." She laughed. "Can I come see it?" "You can come tomorrow." Mom moved the portrait session to next Saturday. "Good. She wants you there. I'm sure she does. I want you there too." I looked at myself in the mirror, still holding the veil against my shoulder. Why? To help put it on. There was the true answer arriving first. Then Tessa added, "And because I want my sister there." I let the silence sit long enough for both answers to remain visible. "Send me the time," I said. The bridal portrait took place at the same hotel where the reception would be held, in a suite with gold curtains and furniture designed to discourage actual sitting. Mom had brought a garment steamer, 2 cosmetic bags, a sewing kit, bottled water, granola bars, blotting papers, an emergency umbrella, and 3 pairs of earrings. I brought the veil in its new acid-free box. "You're late," Mom said when I entered. I checked my phone. "I'm 9 minutes early. We needed to be ready before the photographer. That's what early means." Tessa stood near the window in her wedding gown. The dress was sleeveless and fitted through the waist with a clean square neckline and a long, simple skirt. It was beautiful. She was beautiful. For a second, my hurt over the shopping appointment vanished beneath the plain fact of seeing my sister as a bride. Her face softened when she saw mine. "You like it?" "I hate it." "You look terrible." She smiled. "Liar. You look perfect." Mom watched us through the mirror, then busied herself with the jewelry cases. I set the veil box on the bed. Tessa came closer as I lifted the tissue. "Oh," she said. The repaired lace looked warmer against the white bedspread, closer to cream than ivory. Tessa touched one finger to a flower. "It doesn't look old now. It still is. You know what I mean." I positioned her in front of the mirror and separated the hair near her crown. She had chosen a low twist, sleek and modern. The comb slid into place with almost no resistance. "Hold still." "I am holding still. You're breathing like prey." "Mom gave me too much coffee." "I told you she didn't need coffee," Mom said. "I'm 33, Tessa replied. "You don't control my caffeine." "Your hands were shaking, because you asked me every 4 minutes whether I was nervous." I anchored the comb with 2 concealed pins through her hair, not the lace, then stepped back. The room quieted. The veil transformed the dress, not by making it grander. It softened Tessa's polished silhouette and made her look less like the woman from the boutique's advertisement and more like somebody connected to a past. Mom's eyes filled. "June would be so happy," she whispered. Tessa met my gaze in the mirror. "What do you think?" I wanted to say it was mine. I wanted to take it off her and put it back in the box. Instead, I adjusted the scorched corner so it lay where people could see it. "I think Grandma would tell you not to stand too close to a curling iron." Tessa laughed, and the photographer entered on the sound. For the first 20 minutes, everything was easy. Tessa turned toward the window, sat on the edge of the chaise, and looked over her shoulder while the veil pooled behind her. Mom hovered beside the photographer, suggesting angles until the photographer politely handed her a reflector to keep her occupied. Then Mom asked for the legacy pose. "The what?" Tessa said. Mom took Grandma's wedding photograph from her bag. "I thought we could recreate this one, then we'll display them together at the reception." The photograph showed Grandma alone on the church steps, one hand holding the veil against the wind. Tessa looked at me. "Did you know about this?" "No. It will take 5 minutes," Mom said. "Mara arranged the veil like June's." I crouched beside Tessa and spread the lace across the carpet. Mom held up Grandma's picture. "No, the other direction." June's edge curves toward her left. The wind curved it. "Then make it curve." "I left my wind machine at home." The photographer hid a smile. Mom stepped forward and lifted the veil herself. Her ring caught one of the flowers. I heard the thread snap. "Stop," I said. Everyone froze. I took the lace from Mom's hand. One flower hung loose beside a fresh pull in the netting. Mom looked irritated before she looked sorry. "It's tiny," she said. Tessa saw my face in the mirror. "Mom," she said quietly, "get away from the veil." Mom stepped back. The photographer lowered her camera. Even the reflector seemed embarrassed. "I barely touched it," Mom said. "You caught it on your ring," Tessa replied. "I said I was sorry." "You didn't." Mom looked at me. "I'm sorry." I held the flower between 2 fingers. The anchoring thread had snapped, but the lace itself had only pulled slightly. I could repair it. That wasn't the point, which meant Mom immediately tried to make it the point. "You can fix that, can't you?" Tessa turned in the chair. "Do not ask her that right now." What should I ask? Whether she plans to glare at me for the rest of the session? "I'm not glaring," I said. Mom lifted her hands. "Fine. I am nowhere near the veil." She retreated to the window with the reflector. Tessa watched me in the mirror. "Take it off. We're not done." "I don't care. Take it off before she starts directing weather." The photographer studied her camera settings. Mom's face tightened. "We paid for another hour." "And we have pictures," Tessa said. "We don't have the legacy pose." "I don't want the legacy pose. You just said you wanted Grandma represented." "I do. I don't need to stand like her." Mom looked wounded in a way that was both sincere and infuriating. She had built an entire emotional structure around one photograph, and Tessa had just removed a load-bearing wall. I slid the pins from Tessa's hair. When I lifted the comb, she caught my wrist gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You didn't snag it." "I know." I wrapped the veil in tissue while Tessa finished the session without it. Mom stayed by the window, holding the reflector at an angle that lit nobody. On the drive home, Tessa called me. I put her on speaker and set the veil box farther from the passenger door. "Is it bad?" she asked. "No." The flower came loose. The netting stretched, but it didn't tear. "Can you fix it?" "Yes." A pause. "Sorry," she said. I know that's not the first thing I should ask. It's a reasonable thing to ask. Mom says you overreacted. Mom says fire alarms overreact. She was upset. She damaged the thing she insists she values more correctly than I do. I know. I waited for the rest. Nothing came. "You were good in there," I said. "At what?" "Telling her to back off." "Oh." Her voice softened. I was mad. That's usually when it works. She laughed faintly. She called Ryan afterward and told him I humiliated her in front of the photographer. What did Ryan say? He asked why she called him. I smiled. I continue to approve of him. He says being approved by you feels like passing a background check. Tell him his references were strong. At a red light, I touched the corner of the box. "Tess, did you tell Mom the veil comes home with me after the wedding?" "I told her you said that." "That's not what I asked. I said I thought it was fair." "Thought?" "Mara, can we not do this while I'm still zipped into shapewear? That sounds unsafe for both of us. I'm serious. So am I." She exhaled. "I told her you should keep it." "And?" "She said we'd deal with it after the wedding." My hand tightened around the steering wheel. "That means no. It means she's not willing to fight about it right now. She's not willing to agree. I can't make her say the sentence you want." "No, but you can decide what you'll do. What do you want me to do? Refuse to wear it?" I didn't answer fast enough. Tessa's voice changed. "Wow. You asked. You're the one who restored it. For Grandma's sake. And you offered to let me borrow it. On the condition that it comes back to me, it will. Mom doesn't agree. Mom isn't going to rip it out of your hands at the reception. I thought of her ring catching the flower. That isn't reassuring. The light turned green. A horn sounded behind me. I have to drive, I said. You are driving. Goodbye, Tessa. I ended the call before she could tell me she loved me. At home, I repaired the flower in 11 minutes. I spent another hour looking for damage that wasn't there. The closer the wedding came, the less it belonged to Tessa and Ryan. Mom filled every available space with extra meaning. The cocktail napkins needed to match Grandma's favorite hydrangeas. The dessert table needed framed wedding photographs from both families. The ceremony program grew a paragraph honoring relatives who had died, then shrank when Ryan pointed out that half the guests would still be reading during the vows. Tessa resisted small things and surrendered large ones. She refused chair covers but agreed to a mother-daughter dance. She rejected Mom's idea of releasing doves but approved a memory table. She complained about the welcome bags, then spent a Sunday afternoon helping me put locally made caramels into 72 of them after somehow assigning me the task anyway. Ryan arrived halfway through with pizza. I thought snacks were pending, I said. Tessa sealed a bag with a green ribbon. Pending matured. That isn't how no works. You're here. That also isn't how no works. Ryan set the pizza on the coffee table. I told her this. And yet you brought food, I said. I'm an enabler with boundaries. Tessa threw a roll of ribbon at him. The three of us worked on the floor of their apartment, surrounded by paper bags, tissue, and boxes of pretzels shaped like the state. It was almost fun. Tessa played old songs from Grandma's kitchen radio. Ryan tied terrible bows. I retied them until he accused me of erasing his creative contribution. Then Mom called to ask whether we had included a printed explanation of the local products. No one needs a biography of a pretzel, Tessa said. It's about hospitality, Mom replied through the speaker. It's about sodium. Mara, what do you think? I think involving me in this question violates international law. Mom ignored me. I wrote a short welcome note. I'll email it. Ryan looked at me. Can you tell when she's lying? She has not written a short anything in her life. The note arrived at 1,100 words. Tessa cut it to 4 sentences. Mom restored 2 paragraphs. Ryan changed the shared document permissions so only he could edit. At midnight, Mom called me privately. Tessa is stressed, she said. She's planning a wedding. She snaps at everything I say. You say a lot. This isn't amusing. I'm worried she's going to regret cutting me out. I sat on my couch with a bag of rejected caramels in my lap. She talks to you every day. She no longer tells me anything without Ryan present. Maybe she likes having a witness. That is a cruel thing to say. It was. I opened another caramel. Why are you calling me? You've always been able to calm her down. There it was, my position in the family, disguised as a compliment. I'm not mediating. I didn't ask you to mediate. You're asking me to translate you into something she can tolerate. I'm asking you to remind your sister that I'm doing all this because I love her. Maybe do less. Mom went silent. I regretted the bluntness, but not enough to retract it. She'll understand someday, she said, when she has a family event that matters this much. She has one now. You're standing in the middle of it. She hung up. The next morning, Dad texted to ask if I could drive him to his knee appointment because Mom had a florist meeting. I called him. You told me you scheduled it. I did. You didn't mention needing a ride. I can drive. Then why are you asking me? Your mother doesn't want me driving afterward if they give me an injection, so reschedule the florist. That appointment was hard to get. Your doctor was harder, Mara. The sound of my name carried the whole family arrangement inside it. Mom's commitments were fixed. Dad's needs were flexible. My time was the material used to make the two fit. I took him to the appointment. In the waiting room, he bought me terrible coffee from a machine and slid it across the table. I know, he said. Know what? That I should have asked her first. And? She said the florist has another wedding after hours and keeps changing the flower availability. Tragic. Dad looked down at his cup. I don't like asking you. You do it often for someone who doesn't like it. I like seeing you. Then invite me to lunch. He nodded slowly. The doctor gave him the injection. On the way home, Dad asked if I wanted lunch. I said yes. It was such a small adjustment that it nearly broke my heart. The rehearsal took place on a humid Friday evening at Grace Hill Chapel, where the air conditioning made a grinding sound every 40 seconds. White ribbons already marked the aisle. The flower arch stood unfinished at the front, dense on one side and skeletal on the other. Mom noticed immediately. "That cannot be final," she said. The coordinator, a calm woman named Leslie, assured her that the florist would complete it in the morning. "Because it looks diseased," Mom said. "It's unfinished," Tessa replied. "I know that. I'm describing the unfinished condition." Ryan whispered something to her. She bit her lip to stop smiling. Reverend Ellis gathered us near the altar. He was a compact man with silver hair and a voice that made every sentence sound thoughtfully edited. "We'll keep this simple," he said. "Today is about getting comfortable with movement. Tomorrow is about being present." Mom raised her hand. He blinked. "Yes? Will you be including the family remembrance before the vows?" Tessa turned. "The what?" "The acknowledgement we discussed." Reverend Ellis glanced at his binder. "I have a brief mention of loved ones who aren't with us." "And the veil," Mom said. "June's veil." Tessa looked at me. Reverend Ellis smiled. "Yes, Denise shared the history with me. It's a lovely detail." "What history?" I asked. Mom answered without looking at me. That my mother wore it when she married my father, preserved it all these years, and now her granddaughter is carrying that love into her own marriage. Every word was true. Together they made a lie. Reverend Ellis looked between us. I thought I might ask Tessa to say a few words about it before the vows. Tessa's face lost color. "I don't want to do that," she said. Mom gave a small laugh. "It would be 1 or 2 sentences." I said, "I don't want to." Reverend Ellis closed his binder. "Then we won't." "Let's not decide under rehearsal nerves," Mom said. "I'm not nervous," Tessa replied. "I'm saying no." The chapel went very quiet. Mom's smile remained in place. "All right," she said, "of course. It's your ceremony." But as we moved into our positions, I saw her lean toward Reverend Ellis and touch the card inside his binder. She said something too softly for me to hear. Then he nodded. I considered walking over and asking what she'd said. Then Leslie clapped her hands and called for the wedding party to line up. Dad was supposed to escort Mom to the front, but he had wandered into the vestibule looking for a restroom. Ryan's brother couldn't remember whether he stood on the left or right. Tessa's bouquet substitute was a paper plate with 3 ribbons taped to it. Normal confusion swallowed the moment. Reverend Ellis guided Ryan and Tessa through the ceremony without reading the actual vows. When he reached the place where he had mentioned the veil, he skipped it. Tessa noticed. Her shoulders loosened. Maybe Mom had simply asked him not to remove the card yet. Maybe his nod had meant he understood that Tessa said no. I had spent so many years interpreting my mother's intentions that I sometimes mistook anxiety for evidence. At the rehearsal dinner, Mom was almost aggressively pleasant. She praised the restaurant, complimented Ryan's parents, and made a short toast in which she said marriage was 2 families choosing to trust one another. She looked directly at me during the word trust. I drank my wine. Tessa sat across from me, her knee bouncing beneath the table. After dessert, she followed me into the restroom and waited while a woman in a purple dress washed her hands for an impossibly long time. When the woman left, Tessa locked the door. "You cannot hold everyone hostage in a restaurant bathroom," I said. "I need to ask you something. That sentence usually costs me a weekend." She leaned against the sink. "Did you hear what Mom said to Reverend Ellis?" "No." "But you saw her." "Yes." "What do you think she said?" "Ask her." I did. She said she was clarifying Grandma's name. "That's possible." "You don't believe that." "I don't know." Tessa looked at herself in the mirror. Her rehearsal dress was pale green, almost the exact shade formerly known as woodland mist. I told him no, she said. I heard you. He heard me, right? Yes. And then he skipped it during the rehearsal. Yes. She nodded, using my answers like sandbags. Okay, if you're worried, ask him directly. That makes it seem like I think he can't follow a simple instruction. You do think that. I think Mom can make a simple instruction feel rude. That's different. She smiled unwillingly. I stood beside her at the mirror. Do you want to wear the veil tomorrow? Yes. The answer came quickly. Because you want to, or because changing your mind now would create a scene. Both can be true. They can. She studied my reflection. Do you want me to wear it? No. Her face tightened. You asked? I said. I know. I just thought maybe after the portrait, you looked beautiful in it. I still wish Mom hadn't given it to you. I'm not Mom. I know. Sometimes I don't think you do. She unlocked the door and left. I stayed long enough to read the framed sign over the towel basket 3 times. Please take one. Somehow it felt accusatory. Mom came to my apartment at 7 the next morning. She knocked with one hand and held 2 garment bags, a tote, and a cardboard tray of coffee with the other. You're not dressed, she said when I opened the door. I'm wearing clothes, you know what I mean. The ceremony is at 4. Hair begins at 9. It's 7. We need to be at the hotel by 8. I took the coffee tray before she dropped it. You told me 8:30. Plans changed. Did phones stop working? She walked in and scanned the room until she found the acid-free box on the dining table. Is that it? No, that's my other antique veil. She ignored me and reached for the lid. Don't. Her hand stopped. I need to check it. I checked it last night. I haven't seen it since the portrait. You saw it when you snagged it. Her mouth compressed. Are we going to do this all day? I wasn't planning to. She moved away from the table. Your father is already at the hotel with Ryan. Why? They're having breakfast. You made Dad arrive before me so he could eat eggs. He wanted to spend time with Ryan. That was believable. It was also the sort of plan Mom would later describe as a meaningful passing of wisdom between generations, though Dad's wisdom would probably involve parking regulations. I showered while Mom reorganized the items in my tote. When I came out, she had removed the small sewing kit I carried for the veil and replaced it with her larger one. Mine has silk thread, I said. You can put yours back. I didn't take yours out. We don't have time for this. It was going to be a long day. The hotel suite smelled of hairspray and hot curling irons. Tessa sat in front of the mirror in a white robe, her hair clipped into sections around her head. The makeup artist was applying something beneath her eyes, while Tessa looked up like a patient receiving drops. You're here, she said. I was court-ordered. Mom began unloading supplies. For the next 4 hours, the room filled and emptied around us. Leslie arrived with the schedule. The florist delivered bouquets. Ryan's mother brought champagne and cried when she saw Tessa's dress hanging near the window. Mom cried because Ryan's mother cried, then insisted her makeup be repaired before anyone took candid photographs. I became responsible for objects, bouquets, rings until they went to Ryan's brother, Tessa's lipstick, the marriage license envelope, which Leslie collected before Mom could decide I should hold that too, the emergency kit, the veil. Mom tried twice to open its box. I moved it both times. At 1:15, Tessa ate half a turkey sandwich while the makeup artist begged her not to get mustard near the robe. At 2, Ryan sent her a handwritten note. She cried so hard the makeup artist said a word I had never heard from a professional. At 2:30, while everyone else went downstairs to inspect the ballroom, Tessa and I were alone. She stood in her dress with her back to me as I fastened the last row of tiny buttons. Too tight? I asked. No, can you breathe? Not emotionally. Dress can't fix that. I was told it could. I finished the last button and turned her around. She looked down at her hands. Ryan's note said he's proud of how we protected the wedding from becoming something we didn't want. That sounds like Ryan. I feel like a fraud. Also sounds like a bride. She looked up. Did Mom say anything to you about Reverend Ellis? No. I emailed him last night. And? He said the ceremony would reflect my wishes. Good. He didn't specifically say he removed the veil question, then ask him when we get there. She groaned. I don't want to spend my wedding day policing everyone. You're not policing everyone. You're confirming one sentence. She walked to the window. Down below, guests were beginning to cross the hotel courtyard toward the chapel shuttle. I just want the next few hours to happen, she said. I understood that. Tessa had reached the point where making any decision felt more dangerous than accepting whatever was already moving. I opened the box. The veil lay between layers of blue and white tissue. I lifted it by the comb, and Tessa turned from the window. Neither of us spoke while I placed it in her hair. I secured the comb, checked the repaired flower, and smoothed the lace over her shoulders. The scorched corner fell near her left arm. Tessa touched it. Grandma would have had opinions about all this, she said. She'd have stolen the tiny shampoo bottles. She did love complimentary things. She believed they were included in the price, which made taking them a financial responsibility. Tessa smiled at our reflections. I do remember her, she said. I know, not the way you do. No. She waited for me to soften the answer. I didn't. Then she reached back and squeezed my hand. I'm glad you're here. Before I could answer, Mom came in with the photographer. Her face lit when she saw Tessa. Oh, she said, one hand pressing to her chest. There she is. For once, she didn't touch the veil. The chapel was full when we arrived. Through the vestibule doors came the low, collective hum of people attempting to whisper. Dad stood beside Tessa, checking his pockets repeatedly. What are you looking for? I asked. Nothing. Then you found it. He gave me a nervous smile. Mom had already gone in. I took my place ahead of Tessa and Dad. Leslie opened the doors. The music began. Walking down the aisle, I saw Ryan at the altar. His expression changed the moment he saw Tessa behind me. Whatever else our family had built around this day, that look belonged only to them. I took my place in the front row. Dad placed Tessa's hand in Ryan's, hugged them both, and sat beside Mom. She gripped his forearm. He covered her hand with his. Reverend Ellis welcomed us. He spoke about choosing one another not once, but repeatedly. Tessa and Ryan looked calmer with every sentence. Then he opened his binder. I saw the card. Before we exchange vows, he said, smiling at Tessa, would you tell us the story behind this beautiful veil? Tessa's face emptied. Mom inhaled beside me, a small, hopeful sound. Ryan turned toward Reverend Ellis. We're not doing that. He said it quietly, but the microphone caught every word. Reverend Ellis blinked. I'm sorry. I understood. Tessa pulled her hands from Ryan's. She reached up, found the comb, and dragged it free before I could stop her. One hidden pin caught, tugging her hair loose at the crown. She barely seemed to feel it. The veil collapsed over her arm. Tess, I whispered. She crossed the 2 steps to me. It was my grandmother's, she said, her voice carrying through the microphone. But it isn't really my story. It mattered to Mara. Mom wanted me to wear it. She pushed the veil into my arms. The comb struck my wrist. The loose pin fell onto the carpet between my shoes. Then Tessa returned to Ryan and held out her hands. Can we continue? Reverend Ellis looked stricken. Of course. Mom leaned toward me. Sit down, she whispered. Do not make this worse. I gathered the veil before it could touch the floor and sat. The ceremony continued. Ryan's voice shook during his vows. Tessa's did not. She promised to tell him the truth even when honesty arrived late. A few people laughed softly, assuming it was a charming private reference. I stared at the scorched corner in my lap. When they kissed, everyone stood. I stood too, the veil bundled against my chest. In the vestibule, Leslie rushed toward Tessa with safety pins and hairspray. Ryan's mother asked whether the comb had hurt her. Reverend Ellis tried to apologize, but Mom cut him off. It was a misunderstanding, she said. Tessa was overwhelmed. I was not overwhelmed, Tessa replied. You just pulled a family heirloom out of your hair during your ceremony. You told him to ask. I clarified your grandmother's name." Reverend Ellis looked miserable. "Denise said you had reconsidered and wanted an opportunity to honor her." Tessa stared at Mom. Mom turned to me instead. "Why are you holding it like that? Put it in the box. The box is at the hotel. Then take it to the car." "The photographs are starting," Leslie said carefully. Mom lowered her voice. "Mara, please fix this." I looked at Tessa. She was already turning toward Ryan as the chapel doors opened and guests spilled into the courtyard. So I carried Grandma's veil to my car. By the time I returned, the family photographs had begun. Mom waved me into position without meeting my eyes. "Smile," she said. The photographer lifted her camera. I did what I had always done. I made the picture easier. The photographer arranged us beneath the flower arch, which had recovered from its diseased condition and now looked capable of consuming a person. "Parents beside the couple," she called. "Sister on the bride's side." I moved next to Tessa. Her hair had been repaired, though one section near the crown sat higher than the other. She kept touching it. "Stop," I murmured. "I look lopsided." "You are lopsided. That's not helpful. You're beautiful." She dropped her hand. For the photograph, she leaned into me. Anyone looking later would see two sisters pressed shoulder to shoulder, smiling beneath white roses. They would not see the veil locked in my car or Mom's jaw tightening each time Reverend Ellis came near us. After the immediate family pictures, Ryan's parents joined, then his brother. Then combinations multiplied until nobody knew whether they had been dismissed. Dad wandered out of frame twice. Mom directed people with a precision that would have been useful during an evacuation. Tessa caught my wrist as I stepped away. "Are you okay?" It was the first time she had asked. "I don't know. I'm sorry." The photographer called for the bridal party. Tessa glanced over. "I have to, I know. Don't leave." Then she was gone. Mom appeared beside me. "Where's the veil?" "In my car." "You left it in a hot car?" "It's 70 degrees. Heat builds inside closed vehicles. It has been there for 12 minutes. She looked around before lowering her voice. "People are asking questions. What are you telling them?" "That the comb pulled." "It didn't." "It did when she removed it." "That isn't why she removed it. I am trying to keep a private family matter from becoming reception gossip." "Then stop talking about it." Mom's nostrils flared. "Go get the box from the suite and put the veil away properly. You can get the box. I am needed here. So am I. Apparently, for photographs." She looked toward the courtyard where Tessa was laughing with Ryan and their friends. "Do not punish your sister on her wedding day." I almost admired the speed of it. Tessa had taken off the veil. Mom had ignored her refusal. Reverend Ellis had asked the question. Somehow, within 15 minutes, I was the one in danger of ruining the day. "I'm not punishing anyone. You're standing here looking furious. Then stop looking at me." Dad approached before she could answer. "They want us with Ryan's aunts." Mom turned toward him with instant brightness. "Of course." "Where are they?" She walked away without another word to me. The reception ballroom was across the hotel courtyard. Inside, rows of round tables faced a dance floor gleaming beneath hanging lights. The cake stood near a wall of greenery, 3 white tiers surrounded by empty glass stands that were supposed to hold small desserts later. The place cards were arranged alphabetically except for one cluster Mom had reorganized by social risk. I went upstairs, found the empty veil box, and carried it to my car. The lace had shifted inside the temporary towel I'd wrapped around it. I lifted it carefully, checking each flower. The comb was intact. One of the concealed hairpins had pulled a thread loose near the top, leaving a tiny tear no wider than my thumbnail. I sat sideways in the driver's seat and stared at it. Tessa's removal hadn't destroyed the veil. Mom's ring hadn't destroyed it either. Nothing dramatic had happened to the lace. It had simply absorbed one careless thing after another because somebody knew I would repair it. My phone buzzed. Tessa had texted from the reception suite. "Please fix this. Mom is losing it." I looked at the words until the screen went dark. Then it lit again. Also, my flats are in your trunk. Sorry. Can someone bring them up? I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound, but it loosened something in me. I placed the veil between layers of tissue, closed the box, and carried it back through the hotel. Upstairs, I found Tessa's shoes in my emergency tote. I took them to the bridal room. She was standing in front of the mirror while Leslie pinned the bustle of her dress. Mom paced behind them with her phone. The chapel coordinator says 3 people asked Reverend Ellis what happened, Mom said. Then he can tell them he asked me something I told him not to ask, Tessa replied. He feels terrible. He should. Tessa, he believed you had changed your mind because you lied to him. I did not lie. I said you might feel differently in the moment. You told him I wanted the opportunity. I told him you would appreciate it once you were standing there. Leslie concentrated intensely on the bustle. Tessa saw me in the mirror. You found my shoes. I placed them on the couch. And the veil? Mom asked. In the box. Where? Safe. Mara. Tessa asked for her shoes. I brought them. Tessa turned as much as the bustle pins allowed. I texted you. I saw. Can you talk to Mom? No. The word came out quietly. Tessa blinked. I just mean, explain why I know what you mean. Mom stopped pacing. No one is asking you to perform surgery. We need to agree on what we're telling people. I'm not telling people anything. You cannot leave the story open. Guests invent things. They watched it happen, I said. They watched Tessa become emotional. I was not emotional, Tessa snapped. Mom turned to her. You pulled off your veil in front of 100 people. Because he asked me to talk about something I told him not to bring up. You could have said, it belonged to Grandma June. That is 7 words. And then what? Pretend it was mine? Pretend Mara wasn't sitting there? You embarrassed Mara more by handing it to her. Both of them looked at me. It was my cue. Explain Tessa to Mom. Explain Mom to Tessa. Turn a collision into a misunderstanding and absorb whatever remained. I put the emergency tote on the couch beside the shoes. The sewing kit is in the front pocket, I told Leslie. There are extra safety pins in the blue pouch. Tessa's lipstick is inside the zippered compartment. Leslie straightened slowly. Okay. I handed Mom the vendor folder. She stared at it. Why are you giving me this? The bakery contact is clipped to the cake diagram. The florist still needs to place the bud vases near the guest book, and the shuttle driver has my number, so tell him to call you instead. Mara, Tessa said. I'm leaving. Her face changed. You can't leave. I can. It's my wedding. I know. Dinner hasn't even started. I know. Mom stepped between us. You are not walking out because your sister removed a veil. No, I'm walking out because both of you are asking me to make what happened easier for you. No one asked that, Mom said. Tessa looked at the floor. I picked up my purse. Mara, please. Tessa's voice cracked. I didn't mean to humiliate you. I believe you. That was the truth. It also wasn't enough. I panicked, she said. He asked, and Mom was looking at me and I couldn't stand there and tell everybody some fake story. So you told them it was mine. Because it is. Only when you didn't want it anymore. Her mouth opened, then closed. Mom's voice sharpened. That is unfair. Yes, I said, it is. I walked out. Nobody chased me. The elevator stopped on every floor. At the lobby, a couple in hiking clothes got on carrying a cooler and wished me a good evening. I thanked them with the vendor folder's paper cut stinging my palm, even though I no longer had the folder. I drove home with Grandma's veil on the passenger seat. My phone rang before I reached the highway. Mom, then Dad, then Tessa. I turned it face down. At my apartment, I carried the box inside and locked the door. I took off my dress, wiped away my makeup, and ate cereal in an old college t-shirt. It was 6:20 in the evening. The reception dinner would be starting. At 6:34, Ryan texted. I'm sorry, she knows. I didn't answer because I didn't know what he meant. At 6:47, Dad wrote, Your mother missed the family entrance. Please call me. At 7:10, Tessa sent, I'm not asking you to come back. I just need to know you're home safe. I replied, home. The response came at once. Thank you. At 7:23, Mom called again. At 8, Leslie texted to ask where the bakery diagram was. I told her Mom had the vendor folder. At 8:15, she replied, found it. At 8:17, Mom wrote, you could have told me the cake table had to be moved before the dessert delivery. I set the phone in a kitchen drawer. The silence in my apartment felt artificial, as if a party were still happening in the walls. I imagined Dad trying to find his place during the family entrance. Mom searching the vendor folder while refusing to admit she had it. Tessa dancing in shoes I had carried upstairs 5 minutes before leaving. I imagined Ryan looking toward the ballroom door. Then I opened the veil box. The tiny tear near the comb was still there. I threaded a needle, made 2 stitches, and stopped. The veil didn't need to be fixed that night. Nobody was waiting to wear it in the morning. The flower could remain loose. The pulled thread could remain visible. I wrapped it in blue tissue and placed the box on the top shelf of my bedroom closet. I slept badly and woke at 6 to 23 messages. Most were practical remnants from the reception. A missed call from the shuttle driver. A question about the extra boutonniere. A photograph Dad had accidentally sent of his own thumb. 3 messages came from people who had seen the ceremony. Ryan's mother wrote that she hoped I was all right and added, without explanation, that weddings made normal people behave like they were being pursued. My cousin Beth wrote, your mom says the comb hurt Tessa. That is not what it looked like from row 4. Reverend Ellis sent an apology. He said Denise had assured him that Tessa's hesitation at the rehearsal was temporary, and that the family story would mean a great deal to everyone once spoken aloud. He took responsibility for not confirming directly with Tessa before the ceremony. I read his message twice. Then I found Mom's final text, sent at 1:11 in the morning. I hope you're satisfied. We spent the entire reception explaining your absence. I made coffee and did not answer. Dad came over at 9. He looked exhausted. His tie was gone, but he was still wearing yesterday's white shirt beneath a windbreaker. He carried my emergency tote in one hand and half a centerpiece in the other. Why do you have flowers? I asked. Your mother said we paid for them. That arrangement was 8 feet wide. I took a section. He held it out. White roses leaned drunkenly from a block of green foam. I don't want apology flowers stolen from a floral arch. They're not apology flowers. Then what are they? I don't know. Regular flowers. I let him in. He placed the emergency tote on the counter and the flowers in my sink. 1 rose fell onto the sponge. How bad was it? I asked. The wedding? After I left. It was a wedding. People ate. They danced. Your mother gave the shuttle driver the florist's number. I closed my eyes. He figured it out, Dad added. And Tessa? She cried in the coat room, fixed her makeup, then danced with Ryan. Did she have a good time? Yes. He paused. Some of the time. I poured him coffee. He accepted it black, which meant he was too tired to locate milk. Mom says I ruined the reception. She says you complicated it. What does that mean? She had to answer questions. No, she chose to answer questions. Dad looked toward my hallway. Where's the veil? Safe. Your mother wants it back. I laughed softly. Of course she does. She thinks keeping it now looks retaliatory. It was promised to me. I know. You know because Grandma told you? I know. Then why are you here asking for it? His face sagged. I'm not asking, he said. I'm telling you what your mother wants. You've built an entire marriage out of pretending those are different things. Dad stared into his coffee. Then, very carefully, he set the mug down. That may be true, he said, but you've built a lot of your life around being angry that I did. I leaned against the counter. Dad looked as surprised by his own sentence as I was. He reached for the coffee, then changed his mind. That sounded harsher than I meant, he said. No, it sounded like you finally meant something. He nodded once. The rose in the sink rolled toward the drain. What should I have done? I asked. Not been angry. You should have been angry. Your mother was wrong. The words were so direct that I almost looked behind me to see who he was talking to. She shouldn't have told Reverend Ellis that Tessa changed her mind, he continued. Tessa shouldn't have handed you the veil like that. And I shouldn't have let your mother make you responsible for everything afterward. But, no but, you came prepared with one. He looked toward the flowers. But leaving made it easy for everybody to say the evening went wrong because you left. There it is. I'm not saying they're right. You're saying I should have stayed so they couldn't blame me. I'm saying people saw you walk out. They also saw Tessa take off the veil. That happened at the chapel. By dinner, people had decided it was a funny wedding moment. Funny. You know how families are. Yes, Dad. I know exactly how this family is. He put both hands flat on the counter. I'm trying to tell you how the story is being told. No. You're warning me that Mom already chose a version and wants the veil to match it. His eyes dropped. I had it then. What is she saying? He rubbed the side of his nose. That you were upset from the beginning. I was. That you involved Reverend Ellis. I spoke to him once at the rehearsal in front of everybody. She thinks you may have raised the issue before that. I didn't. I believe you. Does she? He didn't answer. Does Tessa? He finally picked up the coffee and drank it cold enough to make him wince. I don't know what Tessa believes this morning. She was there. She's leaving for the airport in 2 hours. That isn't a neurological condition. Mara? I folded my arms. Dad sighed. Your mother asked me to bring back the veil. I told her I wouldn't. That was not what I had expected. I came to return your bag and make sure you were all right, with flowers. They were on the table. He looked genuinely helpless about the flowers. My anger shifted, losing its target without disappearing. Thank you for not asking for it, I said. You're welcome. Are you going to tell Mom Grandma said it was mine? I already did. And? She said I was remembering conveniently because I felt guilty. That sounds like her. It does. He gave a tired half laugh. At the door he stopped. I'm sorry I didn't remember at dinner. You remembered. He looked at me. You didn't want to say it, I continued. That's different. He nodded, accepting the correction. I'm sorry for that, too. After he left, I put the broken centerpiece in a mixing bowl because I didn't own a vase large enough for Mom's idea of regular flowers. Tessa and Ryan flew to Oregon for a week, their social media filled with foggy coastline, enormous trees, and pictures of coffee beside windows. I liked one photograph in which Ryan was wearing a rain poncho and looked betrayed by nature. Tessa sent me private messages twice. The first was a picture of a small ceramic bird in a shop window. Grandma would buy 6 of these, she wrote. I replied, only if they held medication. She added a laughing face. The second came 3 days later. I'm sorry about the veil. I read it while sitting in the parking lot outside Dad's physical therapy clinic. I had driven him because Mom's volunteer shift ran late, and neither of us had acknowledged that I was doing exactly what I had always done. I typed, which part? The 3 dots remained for a long time. All of it, she wrote. It was almost an answer. I put the phone away. The Sunday after they returned, Mom called a family dinner. She didn't say it was about the wedding. She said she had too much pot roast for 2 people, which was not credible because Mom had never accidentally cooked anything. I went because Dad asked. Tessa and Ryan arrived carrying a bottle of wine in a paper bag from the coast. Tessa hugged me in the hallway. You cut your hair, she said. I got 1/2 an inch trimmed. I notice things. When they're located on my head. Her smile faltered. Ryan hugged me next. Thank you for not holding Oregon responsible. I'm considering sanctions. He handed me the paper bag. Inside was a ceramic bird, dark green and round enough to be mistaken for a pear. The shop sold medication containers? I asked. It's technically a salt cellar, Tessa said. Grandma would approve. For a few minutes, we were ourselves. Dad opened the wine. Mom overcooked the carrots while insisting they were glazed. Ryan told a story about Tessa losing a fight with a hotel washing machine. Tessa stole potatoes from my plate because she claimed mine had more crisp edges. Then Mom placed both hands beside her water glass. We need to clear the air. Ryan stopped smiling. Dad looked at his plate. Tessa took a sip of wine. Mom turned to me. I don't want resentment from the wedding to harden into something permanent. Whose resentment? All of ours. That's Officiant. Mara, please. I waited. Mom drew a careful breath. I am sorry Reverend Ellis misunderstood me. I believed Tessa would appreciate a spontaneous opportunity to honor her grandmother. I was mistaken. Tessa stared at her. That isn't an apology for lying to him, I said. I did not lie. He said you told him she reconsidered. I said I believed she had. You told him she wanted the opportunity. I said she might. No. He texted me. Mom's head tilted. Why is Reverend Ellis texting you? To apologize? For following through on something you encouraged? The sentence was quiet, almost casual. Ryan put down his fork. What exactly are you accusing Mara of? He asked. Mom turned to him with a look of surprise, as though a chair had spoken. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm trying to understand why she was so prepared for that question. Prepared, I said. I sat there holding a veil. You had discussed the history with him at the rehearsal, in front of all of you, after you brought it up. You also knew I hoped he would mention it. I knew Tessa said no. Mom looked at Tessa. Do you remember who first told Reverend Ellis there was disagreement about the veil? Tessa's fingers tightened around her wine glass. No, she said. One small word. Ryan turned toward her. What? I don't remember all the conversations. You were at the rehearsal, I said. I remember the rehearsal. I don't remember whether Mara said anything to him before that. I didn't. I'm not saying you did. You're also not saying I didn't. Tessa looked trapped, which was remarkable because the exit was a sentence she knew was true. I was getting married, she said. That whole week is a blur. I laughed once. Mara, Dad warned. I stood. Mom's face tightened. Please don't leave again. Again? We are trying to resolve this. No. You're trying to get Tessa to leave 1 inch of space around a lie so you can move into it. That is dramatic. No, Mom. Dramatic was arranging an heirloom monologue during somebody else's vows. Tessa's eyes filled. I said I was sorry. You texted all of it from Oregon. What do you want me to do? Tell the truth while Mom is in the room. I am telling the truth. I don't remember every detail. You remember telling him no. Yes. You remember Mom talking to him afterward. I saw them talk. You remember Ryan saying, we're not doing that because you had told him you didn't want it. Yes. So which part is blurry? She looked down. There was the answer. Mom's voice softened. This is what I mean. You're interrogating your sister over the most stressful day of her life. Tessa let her defend her. That hurt more than the veil. I picked up my purse from the sideboard. Mom stood too. If you walk out, you are choosing distance. I turned at the doorway. No, I'm choosing not to stay at a table where you accuse me of setting up my own humiliation and ask me to prove I didn't. No one said you set it up. You asked why I was prepared. I asked a question. Then here's my answer. I was prepared because I restored the veil. I carried it. I protected it. I spent the entire day making sure everyone else had what they needed. That's why it landed in my hands when Tessa didn't want it anymore. Tessa flinched. Ryan stared at the table. Dad got up, but I shook my head. Don't walk me out. I left the ceramic bird in the paper bag on the hall table. At home, I removed the family group chat from my favorites. I didn't block anyone. I didn't make an announcement. I simply stopped answering every vibration as if it were a summons. The change was small enough that nobody noticed for 4 days. Then Dad texted me a photograph of a medical invoice and asked whether it looked like the insurance had paid its part. I replied that he should call the number at the top. He sent back, "You're better at this." I wrote, "You can do it." Mom asked whether I could stop by Friday to help rearrange tables for a church dinner. I said no. She responded, It would take 20 minutes. I said, still no. Tessa sent me her updated resume with a message saying she was considering a communications position at a healthcare nonprofit. I wrote, "That sounds interesting. Good luck." She replied, "Are you mad?" I didn't answer. Sunday arrived without a dinner invitation. At 6, Dad called. "Your mother thought you needed space," he said. "I do. She made chicken. I hope you enjoy it." He was quiet. "What does space mean?" he asked. "It means I'm not coming over." "For how long?" "I don't know. And Thanksgiving. It was 6 weeks away." "Mom already volunteered to host," he continued. "She's making a list." "Of course she was." "I won't be there," I said. Dad inhaled sharply. "You don't mean that." "I do." "Where will you go?" "I haven't decided. You can't skip Thanksgiving because of one dinner." "It isn't because of one dinner." "Then tell me what it's because of." I looked at the empty space on my desk where the veil had lived for weeks. "It's because every time Mom says family, she means I owe you something." "That's not fair." "No, it isn't." I ended the call before he could ask me to make that easier too. The first week without my family's constant requests felt like a vacation. The second felt like a power outage. My phone stayed quiet for whole evenings. I finished a novel I had been carrying between my apartment and office for 3 months. I cleaned the cabinet under my sink and discovered 4 nearly empty bottles of glass cleaner, evidence that I apparently bought cleaning products whenever I felt uncertain about life. I also checked the family group chat more often than I wanted to admit. Mom posted a picture of Dad holding the insurance invoice beside the kitchen phone, his reading glasses halfway down his nose. "Your father spent 45 minutes on hold but resolved it," she wrote. Dad replied, "They have music." Tessa added, "Proud of you for surviving jazz. Nobody tagged me. The invoice got handled. The church tables got rearranged by people who had volunteered for the church dinner. Tessa submitted her resume without my edits and received an interview. The family did not collapse. That should have been liberating. Instead, I kept feeling the small, humiliating ache of learning that I had not been indispensable. I had only been convenient. Mom called twice before Thanksgiving. The first time, she asked whether I was still planning this absence, as though I had reserved it with a deposit. The second time, she offered to move my seat farther from hers if that would make me more comfortable. "Where would you put me?" I asked, near the end. "That sounds festive." "I'm trying." "No, you're arranging furniture around the fact that you still think I caused what happened. I think everyone behaved poorly. Equally, I'm not ranking pain. You rank everything." She went quiet. I could picture her at the kitchen table with a legal pad, menu divided by oven temperature, guest names grouped according to arrival time. Mom loved us with logistics. It was one of the reasons saying no felt like rejecting more than a meal. "You'll regret missing it," she said. "Maybe. Your father will be hurt. Then Dad can tell me." "That is a very clinical way to treat your family. I'll send a warmer number," she hung up. Dad did tell me. He came by my office on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving with a paper cup of coffee and a turkey sandwich from the deli downstairs. He had invited me to lunch, just as I'd told him to. I met him in the lobby where he sat on a low couch beneath a plant with leaves the size of dinner plates. His knee no longer clicked when he stood. "You look better," I said. The shot helped. "I'm glad." We carried our lunch to a small table near the windows. Dad unwrapped his sandwich, removed the tomato, and placed it on the wrapper with the solemnity of a surgeon extracting an organ. "Your mother thinks I'm here to pressure you. Are you?" "A little." "Thanks for the warning." I told her I wouldn't. "But you are." I said a little. I smiled. He looked relieved, then sad about being relieved. "Thanksgiving won't be the same," he said. "It hasn't happened yet." "You know what I mean? I do. Tessa and Ryan are coming early. Your mother ordered a turkey that could feed the water department. Leftovers are her love language. She put your name on the place card. Of course there are place cards. She says they make people feel expected." I folded the edge of my sandwich wrapper. "Dad, I miss you. I miss you too. That doesn't mean I'm ready to sit at that table and pretend Mom didn't accuse me of manipulating the ceremony. She doesn't use that word anymore. That's progress. She thinks you were under a lot of emotional strain because of the veil. That is the same accusation wearing softer shoes. Dad sighed. You always do that. What? Find the sentence underneath the sentence. Someone has to. Sometimes people only mean the sentence they said. Mom doesn't. He couldn't argue. Where will you go? He asked. Beth invited me to her house. Cousin Beth? We only have one Beth. She's serving tofu, isn't she? Beth eats meat. Her husband has that beard. That isn't a dietary restriction. Dad considered this and nodded. I reached across the table and stole one of his potato chips. Come have coffee with me Friday, I said. Your mother will be shopping. Then you'll be free. He smiled. 10? 10. It was the first family plan I had made in weeks that didn't include Mom, and the simplicity of it felt almost illicit. Thanksgiving at Beth's house was loud, mismatched, and held together with folding chairs. Her husband did have a beard. He also smoked a turkey that Dad would have respected. No one assigned me a job when I arrived. I spent 10 minutes wandering the kitchen until Beth shoved a bowl of olives into my hands. Put those somewhere, she said. Where? Anywhere olives seem emotionally appropriate. I placed them beside the rolls. At 3:12, Dad sent me a picture of Mom's table. My place card stood between his and an empty chair. At 3:14, Mom wrote in the group chat, "We waited as long as we could." No one had asked them to wait. I silenced the chat and ate dinner. Beth found me later on the back porch with a slice of pie balanced on my knee. The air was cold enough to make our breath visible. So, she said, the veil. I groaned. I'm not asking for gossip. Your mom already distributed that. What version did you get? That Reverend Ellis surprised Tessa with a sentimental question after you told him there was tension about who should wear the veil. I stared at her. Beth lifted a shoulder. It's slippery. She never says you asked him to do it. She just puts the facts near each other. That's what she does. I know. Did you believe her? I was in row 4. She cut the end from her pie with the side of her fork. I saw your face before he asked, she said. You look like someone watching a car miss a stop sign. Mom says I was prepared. You were. For impact. I looked out at Beth's yard, where 2 strings of lights crossed above a dark patio. Why didn't you say anything? To whom? Mom. She called to complain that you were refusing Thanksgiving. I told her I didn't think you arranged the question. What did she say? That you'd been very emotional about the veil from the beginning. I laughed bitterly. Beth nudged my shoe with hers. I'm sorry. What if I had stayed? At the reception? Would it have mattered? Your mom would have made you tell people the comb hurt. Tessa would have let you. You'd have fixed the cake table and handed out sparklers or whatever people do now. There were no sparklers. Then you were right to leave. I smiled. The porch door opened and Beth's husband leaned out. We need an adult who understands the coffee maker. Beth looked at me. No, I said, we really do. Read the buttons. There are 6. Then you have a 50-50 chance of coffee. It's not 50-50 if there are 6. See? You're learning already. He went back inside. Beth laughed so hard she nearly dropped her plate. On Friday, Dad canceled coffee because Mom wanted help returning borrowed serving dishes. He texted, "Rain check?" I wrote, "Sure." Then I sat in the cafe alone for 15 minutes before admitting I had arrived, hoping he would come anyway. The next week, Tessa got the nonprofit job. She called me from the parking garage after receiving the offer. Her voice shook with excitement. I did it, she said. You did. They said my writing sample was the strongest. Because you're good. I kept waiting for them to ask whether someone helped. That would be a strange interview question. You know what I mean? I did. We talked for 20 minutes without mentioning the wedding. She told me about the salary, the commute, and the supervisor she had liked immediately. I told her to negotiate the start date. She said she already had. I felt proud of her. That did not erase anything. Apparently, 2 truths could occupy the same room without one murdering the other. Before we hung up, she said, I miss you. I miss you too. Can we have dinner? Not with Mom. I meant us. I hesitated. Ryan can come, she added. That isn't us. Right. Sorry. We agreed on Thursday at a small Italian place near her new office. Tessa arrived 12 minutes late and carrying Grandma's ceramic bluebird. She set it on the table between the bread basket and the candle. What is that doing here? I went to Mom's first. She asked me to bring it to you. Why? She says if you're keeping the veil, I should give back the thing I took. I stared at the bird's glossy face. That makes no sense. I told her. What did she say? That objects matter when people decide they matter. That is almost profound for someone being petty. Tessa smiled, then wrapped both hands around her water glass. I didn't know she was going to accuse you at dinner. You helped. Her smile vanished. I didn't remember talking to Reverend Ellis before the rehearsal. I never said you did. I know. That's why I didn't understand what she was asking. She was asking you to pretend there was a possibility I had. I see that now. You saw it then. Tessa looked down at the table. The server approached, saw our faces, and retreated with remarkable judgment. I wanted dinner to stop, Tessa said, so you let Mom put it on me. I didn't say you did anything. You didn't have to. I'm sorry. Which part? Her eyes lifted to mine. She recognized the question from Oregon. For accepting the veil when I knew Grandma wanted you to have it. The restaurant noise seemed to pull away. You knew? Not from Grandma. From Mom. When? When she brought the veil to the dress appointment. I asked if she was sure because you'd said Grandma promised it to you. What did she say? Tessa's fingers tightened around the glass. She said you would get over it. Her voice dropped. She said you always do. I waited for Tessa to continue. She didn't. The ceramic bluebird sat between us, its painted eyes fixed cheerfully on the wall. And you accepted it anyway, I said. Her mouth tightened. Yes. Why? Because I liked the dress with it. That's not why. It's one reason. What's the other one? The server approached again, this time committed. Can I start you with drinks? Tessa ordered wine. I asked for sparkling water because I wanted every available part of my brain. When the server left, Tessa tore a piece of bread into smaller pieces without eating any of them. Mom was so excited, she said. She had the photograph. She kept talking about the 3 generations and how perfect everything would look. When I mentioned you, she got angry. At me, at the situation. At me. Yes. The word barely had sound. And then? She said you weren't using it. She said Grandma probably assumed you'd be the first one married and that circumstances had changed. Grandma said marriage wasn't the condition. I didn't know that then. You knew she promised it to me. I knew you said she did. It was Mom's sentence in Tessa's voice. She heard it too. Her eyes closed. I'm not saying I didn't believe you, she said. You're saying believing me was less convenient. Yes. The server set down our drinks and described the evening specials. Neither of us retained a word. We ordered the first pasta dishes we recognized. When we were alone again, Tessa lifted her wine but didn't drink. I have spent my whole life knowing Mom would eventually come down on my side, she said. Even when I was wrong. Especially when I was wrong. That must have been terrible. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. Good. She loves me. I know. But sometimes it feels like she loves winning through me. That landed differently. I thought of the bridal portrait, Mom stranded by the window with the reflector after Tessa refused the legacy pose. I thought of all the choices Tessa had been praised for making after Mom arranged the available options. She told me the veil would make you angry, Tessa continued. Then she said that wasn't a reason to give up something I wanted. Did you want it before she told you that? Tessa stared at the wine. I wanted to be the daughter wearing it. There it was. Not innocence, not cruelty either. Something more ordinary and harder to dismiss. I liked being chosen, she said. I always like being chosen. At my expense. Yes, The restaurant around us carried on. Forks struck plates. Somebody at the bar laughed too loudly. A man at the next table was explaining to his date why he had switched dentists. I wanted a larger scene. I wanted Tessa to say something unforgivable so I could stand up and leave with my anger clean again. Instead, she looked tired and ashamed. At the altar, she said, I realized I couldn't answer Reverend Ellis without lying. You could have said Grandma wore it. That wasn't the story he was asking for. Mom wanted me to say Grandma's love was being passed to me, but all I could think about was you washing it in your apartment, you fixing the flowers, you telling me not to spray it. I knew everybody was looking at the veil and seeing some beautiful family tradition, and the actual tradition was you doing the work while Mom gave me the result. I looked down at the bubbles climbing the inside of my glass. So you handed it back. I panicked. You escaped. Yes, through me. Her eyes filled. Yes. I leaned back as our food arrived. The server placed pasta between us and departed without attempting conversation. Tessa picked up her fork, then set it down. I am sorry, she said. Not all of it. Specifically. I'm sorry I accepted the veil when I knew you had a claim to it. I'm sorry I let you restore it without defending you. I'm sorry I gave it to you in front of everybody because I couldn't admit what I'd done privately. And I'm sorry I let Mom suggest you arrange the question because I wanted that dinner to end. I had imagined an apology like that. In my imagination, it repaired something immediately. In reality, it only made the damage easier to see. Thank you, I said. Tessa waited. That doesn't mean we're okay. I know. You keep saying that after the point where knowing would help. I know. She gave a short, miserable laugh. Sorry, I twirled pasta around my fork and couldn't eat it. What do you want from me now? I asked. My sister. That's not an answer. I want to call you without wondering whether you'll answer. I want Sunday dinners to stop feeling like a hostage exchange. I want you to tell me when you're angry before it becomes 6 years of evidence. You want me to make this less uncomfortable? No. She paused, maybe partly, but I also want you had me, you used me, I did, for the wedding, for your resume, for every emergency Mom created and every one you created yourself. I know. You gave me tasks through a spreadsheet. That was bad. It was extremely bad. I've deleted the spreadsheet. That helps more than it should. She smiled cautiously. I didn't. Her smile faded. If you want a relationship with me, I said, you have to learn to call when you need nothing. I called about the job. You wanted me to tell you that you deserved it. She opened her mouth, then closed it. You did deserve it, I continued, but you still called for reassurance. What does a call with nothing sound like? You're 33. Figure it out. That's not fair. No. It's a small amount of work. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. We ate lukewarm pasta. The conversation moved painfully into ordinary territory. Her new office had terrible parking. My building's washing machine had begun accepting quarters only if threatened. Ryan wanted to host a game night, but Tessa had banned a game involving railroads after he became economically sinister. When the check came, she paid before I could reach for it. Outside, she handed me the bluebird. I don't want this. Mom said it's yours. Mom doesn't get to redistribute Grandma's things every time she's angry. What should I do with it? You took it. Keep it. Tessa looked at the bird in her hands. Do you hate me? She asked. No. Are you sure? I'm angry. I'm not confused. She nodded. I hugged her before we walked to separate cars. Her arms closed around me too tightly, but I let them. 3 days later, Tessa called and asked if I would come to Mom and Dad's house on Saturday. What do you need? I asked. Help. No. Wait. I need help telling Mom I'm taking my wedding things out of her spare room. You don't need me for that. I know. I want you there. Same problem. She blew air into the phone. Okay, I'm going to Mom's Saturday to take my wedding things. Grandma's sewing table is buried in that room, and I found a box of her fabric when I looked for my centerpiece vases. I thought you might want to see it before Mom donates anything. That was better. Mom had moved Grandma's small sewing table and several boxes into the back bedroom after the house was sold. For 2 years, the room had been storage with a bed somewhere beneath it. She called it the sewing room when she wanted the clutter to sound intentional. "I'll come," I said. Mom was at the grocery store when I arrived. Dad was in the garage reorganizing tools. Tessa had already cleared a narrow path through garment bags, empty centerpiece boxes, and a rolled aisle runner. "There's the woman of nothing," she said. "What? You told me to call when I need nothing. And yet here we are in a room where you need boxes moved. I moved them before you came. Look." She displayed both hands like an accomplished magician. Grandma's sewing table stood beneath the window. The wood was scratched, and one brass drawer pull was missing. A ceramic tomato pincushion sat on top beside a stack of folded fabric. I touched the table's edge. "Mom kept more than she said," I murmured. "She has a gift." Tessa opened the shallow drawer. Inside were wooden spools, chalk, old embroidery scissors, and a packet of pearl-headed needles, the same kind Grandma used on the veil. Tessa picked up the packet. "Are these special?" "No, just old. Can you show me how the stitch works?" I looked at her. "Not today," she said quickly. "I'm not trying to force a moment." "Good." We sat on the edge of the buried bed. Tessa held the needle packet in her lap. "Ryan and I had our first real married fight about you," she said. "Congratulations. He said I apologized because I was afraid you'd never help me again. Was he right?" "Partly. At least she was learning. He asked what I missed about you that wasn't something you did," she continued. "What did you say? You laugh before the meanest part of a joke so everyone has warning. You always smell coffee before you drink it, even if you made it. You sing the wrong words to Tiny Dancer and insist yours are better. They are better. You make terrible situations feel survivable." I looked toward the sewing table. "That last one is still something I do. Maybe. But it's also who you are." "No. That's the problem. All of you turned it into who I am because then you never have to feel bad for needing it." Tessa's eyes lowered. "You aren't the only person Mom uses," she said. "I didn't say I was. She makes me feel like I'm betraying her every time I disagree. She cried for 3 days because Ryan and I chose our own wedding photographs for the album. And then I went over and helped her make a second album." I laughed despite myself. "I know," Tessa said. "It's pathetic." "No, it's trained." She turned the packet of needles over. "I'm trying to stop." "Then stop. You say that like it's a light switch." "No. I say it like you have to do it more than once." Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Mom appeared in the doorway carrying grocery bags. Her expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. "What are you doing in here?" "Getting my wedding things," Tessa said. "And Mara?" Looking at Grandma's sewing table. Mom set the bags on a box. "I wish someone had told me you were coming." "I texted Dad," Tessa replied. "Your father doesn't manage my day." Dad appeared behind her. I was informed. Mom ignored him. Her eyes settled on the needle packet. "Those shouldn't be handled. They're old." "They're needles, Mom," Tessa said. "They were June's." The room went quiet at the irony. Tessa stood. "I told Mara what you said at the dress appointment." Mom's face remained still. "I said many things. You said Mara would get over the veil like she always does. I was trying to keep you from feeling guilty on a happy day. You were trying to make sure I wore it. I thought you wanted to. I wanted you to choose me." Mom looked wounded. "I always choose both of you." Tessa gave a small, disbelieving laugh. Mom's eyes moved to me. "Did you come here to have her confront me?" "No. She called you. You arrive while I'm out. Suddenly we're conducting a tribunal in my storage room." "Your sewing room," I said. "This is exactly what I mean. Everything becomes a criticism." Tessa stepped between us. Not dramatically, just enough that Mom had to look at her. I accepted the veil because it felt good to be chosen over Mara, she said, and you knew that. You used it. Mom's face paled. I gave you something beautiful for your wedding. It wasn't yours. It belonged to my mother, and she gave it to Mara, according to Mara, according to Dad, too. Mom glanced at him. Dad stayed in the doorway. She did, he said. No softening. No weather report. Mom looked at all three of us. Then she picked up the grocery bags. If the veil belongs to Mara, she said, then Mara can keep it. But she doesn't get to keep punishing this family while claiming she's the injured party. I'm not punishing you. You skipped Thanksgiving. You stopped helping your father. You barely speak to your sister unless she submits an apology in the correct format. Dad opened his mouth. I stopped him with one hand. What would make it not punishment? I asked. Mom hesitated. Come to Sunday dinner, she said. Bring the veil. We'll put all this behind us. There it was again. Access, obedience, and Grandma's veil tied into one clean bundle. No. Mom tightened her grip on the bags. Then I want the veil returned. Tessa stared at her. You just said it belongs to Mara. I said if she believes it belongs to her, she may keep it, but not while using it as justification to divide us. I stood. All right. Mom blinked. All right, what? I'll return it. Mara, Tessa said. I walked past Mom into the hall. She followed me. I don't want it returned in anger. I turned. You want me to fight you for it? I said. Then you can call the fight proof that I don't deserve it. That is not what I want. I'll bring it tomorrow. I left before she could revise the terms. At home, I took the acid-free box from the closet. I repaired the last tiny pull near the comb. I smoothed every flower, wrapped the veil in fresh blue tissue, and closed the lid. Then I wrote Mom's name on the box. For the first time since Grandma died, I did not feel afraid of losing it. The next afternoon, I drove the veil to my parents' house. Mom opened the door before I knocked. She had been watching from the front window. Dad stood behind her in the hallway wearing an apron that said, "Kiss the cook," beneath a stain shaped like Florida. Sunday dinner smells drifted from the kitchen. Onions, rosemary, something browning in butter. Mom looked at the box in my arms. You didn't have to bring it today. You asked for it. I said I wanted it returned if you were going to use it as a reason to stay away. And I said I'd return it. Dad stepped aside so I could enter. Mom did not. Are you coming to dinner? She asked. No. Her expression hardened. Then this is a gesture. It's a box. You know what I mean? I know you want the veil to prove something. If I keep it, you'll say I chose an object over the family. If I give it back, you'll say we resolved the disagreement. We can resolve it. Not by trading attendance for Grandma's things. Mom folded her arms. I never said you had to earn it. You said I could keep it if I stopped punishing you. Then you defined not punishing you as coming to dinner and putting everything behind us. That was an invitation. It had collateral. Dad's eyes dropped toward the box. I held it out. Mom didn't take it at first. The veil belongs to you, she said. Only when I agree with you. I did not say that. You don't have to. It's how everything works here. That is an incredibly hurtful characterization of your family. No. It's an accurate description of what happens to me in it. She looked at Dad, waiting for him to lower the temperature. He rubbed one hand over the front of his apron but remained silent. Mom finally took the box. It seemed to weigh more in her arms than it had in mine. Do you want me to apologize for wanting your sister to have a beautiful wedding? She asked. No. Then what do you want? I wanted you to believe Grandma. I wasn't there. Dad was. He remembered after the fact. He admitted that. Mom looked at him. Thank you, Alan. I should have said something sooner, he replied. The lack of apology in his tone surprised all three of us. Mom turned back to me. Tessa wore the veil for less than an hour, she said. You're treating it like I gave away your entire relationship with June. You couldn't give that away. Then why are we doing this? Because when you had to choose between what Grandma wanted for me and what you wanted for Tessa's wedding, you assumed I would absorb the loss. Then, when Tessa made the truth visible, you blamed me for everybody seeing it." Mom's face shifted. For 1 second, I saw recognition. Then it closed. "I'm not doing this on the doorstep. You don't have to do anything." I kissed Dad's cheek. "Dinner smells good. You could stay," he said. "No." His disappointment hurt, but he nodded. Mom still held the veil. "What am I supposed to do with this?" she asked. "Whatever you planned to do when you asked for it." I walked to my car. She didn't call after me. For the next month, the veil remained at my parents' house, and I remained absent from Sunday dinner. The exchange did not produce the victory Mom had expected. Without the veil in my apartment, she could no longer accuse me of holding it hostage. Without my attendance, she could not claim the family was repaired. Dad started meeting me for coffee on Fridays. The first few times, Mom found errands he could combine with the trip: return light bulbs, pick up dry cleaning, deliver a container of soup I had not requested. Eventually, he arrived carrying only himself. He learned to read his insurance statements. He also learned that I did not enjoy reading mine and had simply become good at it through repetition. He started driving himself to physical therapy after the doctor cleared him. Once he called me from the parking lot just to complain about a man who had taken up 2 spaces. "This is a call with nothing," I told him. "There's something." The man parked like a jackass. That counts. Tessa struggled more. Her first attempt came at 8 in the morning on a Wednesday. "I don't need anything," she announced when I answered. "Congratulations. I'm calling to tell you there's a pigeon outside my office with 1 foot. That sounds like a pigeon with a significant need. I'm not asking you to help it. What does it want?" A breakfast sandwich, apparently. We talked about the pigeon for 4 minutes. Her next nothing call turned into a request for advice about her new supervisor. I ended it when she asked me to draft an email. "You could just help me with 1 sentence," she said. "I could, but you're not going to." "No." She was irritated. She rewrote it herself. The next day, she called to tell me the supervisor had agreed with her. I didn't point out that she had survived without my language. She knew. Ryan invited me to their game night. I went. Tessa made a visible effort not to assign me food, cleanup, or responsibility for teaching the rules. Ryan became economically sinister during the railroad game, as advertised. I lost and enjoyed myself. Mom sent invitations rather than instructions. Sunday dinner, if you'd like to come. Church holiday concert, no pressure. Your father is making meatballs and has purchased enough meat for a small nation. Sometimes I declined. Once I accepted dinner and left after dessert when Mom began describing the wedding as a difficult day for all of us. "You're still punishing me," she said near the coat closet. "No, I'm leaving a conversation I don't want to have. That is what punishment looks like." "No, Mom, it's what access with limits looks like." She stared at me as if I had spoken in another language. I kissed Dad goodbye and left. The next invitation still came. 3 months after I returned the veil, Dad appeared at my apartment on a Saturday morning with the acid-free box under his arm. I did not open the door all the way. "Does Mom know you have that?" "Yes." "Does she know you're here?" "Yes." "What did she say?" "That I was choosing sides." "What did you say?" "That I was." I opened the door. Dad placed the box on my dining table. Mom's name was still written across the lid in my handwriting. "I told her June wanted you to have it," he said. "I told her I knew that before June died, and I stayed quiet because arguing seemed worse than letting you handle it. That isn't an apology to me." "No, this is." He looked directly at me. "I'm sorry I let being the easy parent turn you into the responsible daughter. I'm sorry I acted like staying neutral kept the peace when it only meant you paid for it." I sat down. Dad remained standing until I pointed to the other chair. "Did Mom ask you to bring it?" I asked. "No." "Did Tessa?" "No." "Why now?" "Your mother wanted to move it from the hall closet to the sewing room. She said it could stay there until everyone was less emotional. The exact phrase from Grandma's house." I laughed. Dad did too, though his eyes were wet. "I thought we'd tried that," he said. I touched the lid. "I don't want this to be the price of you taking my side. It isn't. June gave it to you. I'm late delivering it. I opened the box. The blue tissue was rumpled. Mom had looked inside. The veil lay exactly as I had folded it, the comb wrapped separately, the scorched corner tucked near the top. Dad watched me lift one edge. Your mother isn't ready, he said. For what? To admit she knew it wasn't hers to give. Then she doesn't get to be ready through me. I know. Do you? I'm practicing. That was honest enough. He left without asking me to dinner. Tessa came over that afternoon carrying Grandma's sewing basket. Dad called you, I said. He said the veil was back where it belonged. She placed the basket on the table. Inside were the pearl-headed needles, silk thread, Grandma's old embroidery scissors, and several scraps of ivory netting. Mom let you take this? I didn't ask permission. That's new. I told her I was taking it. She said those things belong to the family, and I said yes, which includes us. How did that go? She's reorganizing the pantry, a serious sign. Tessa saw the open veil box. Can I look? Yes. She approached slowly, hands behind her back. The lace caught the afternoon light, each repaired flower casting a small shadow onto the tissue beneath it. I'm still sorry, she said. I know. Is that the good I know or the other one? It's both. She accepted that. I opened Grandma's sewing basket and took out a scrap of netting. Then I threaded one of the pearl-headed needles. You asked me how the stitch works. Tessa sat beside me. I said you didn't have to show me. I know. I folded the scrap around a small fabric flower from the basket. You bring the needle up beside the edge, not through the flower. Then you lay the thread over it and anchor the loop. That sounded like English until the word anchor. I demonstrated once. Tessa tried. Her first stitch pulled the netting into a knot. Too tight, I said. You say that like I did it on purpose. Loosen your grip. She tried again. The loop sat crooked but held. Grandma's were crooked, I told her. Yours aren't. Mine used to be. For the next half hour, we worked on the scrap. Tessa asked questions. I answered without taking the needle from her hand. When she grew frustrated, she didn't ask me to finish. Eventually, she made 3 pearl-headed stitches in a row. They're terrible, she said. They'll hold. She smiled. We wrapped the veil in fresh blue tissue together. Tessa held the box while I placed it on the top shelf of my closet. You could wear it someday, she said. Maybe. You could also not. Yes. She nodded, finally understanding that the veil did not need a wedding to justify coming home with me. When we returned to the dining table, the crooked practice stitches lay beside Grandma's old scissors. Tessa reached for her purse. Ryan and I are ordering Thai food later, she said. You can come if you want. You don't have to bring anything. I have plans. Oh, I'm free next Friday. Her face brightened, then settled into something less hungry. Next Friday works. She left the stitch scrap on my table. After she was gone, I picked it up. The loops were uneven, the flower sat slightly off-center, and the final pearl leaned to one side. I put it in the veil box anyway.